I'm glad he survived that. I'm glad he survived that.
Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of October 26, 2022. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Norwalk? Here. Mr. Ladder?
Here.
Mr. Claybrook?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Ms. Baker?
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Present.
Chair Rainey?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or the Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. You may all remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, the motion carries. Mr. Secretary, if you could give us a secretary's report if we have one this week, and if there is, then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I do not have a secretary's report, so I will go into the procedures. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the front right podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation that will contain site plans, photographs, and maps of the subject property. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the board will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to provide rebuttal. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the board will be sworn in by the chair. A member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out speaker's cards for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD staff member at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the board will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. Pursuant to the board's rules of procedures, the time allotted for speakers will be as follows. The applicant has 5 minutes to present his or her case. The applicant may reserve unused time for his or her rebuttal. Those speakers in support of the applicant have 5 minutes. This 5 minutes is the total time allotted for support testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. Those speakers in opposition of the application have 10 minutes. This 10 minutes is the total time allotted for opposition testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. The applicant has 2 minutes for rebuttal in addition to any unused time for his or her presentation. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the board. The chair may provide additional time provided that both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. If the applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing, or if a board member wishes to be heard or wishes to hear additional testimony from any party, a 2/3 vote is required to reopen the public hearing pursuant to the board's rules and procedures. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and or rebuttal. All motions made by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require that the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period not to exceed 90 days with the consent of the applicant or 30 days without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and became effective on January 1st of 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled as required by the EDC.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should make their objection known by a show of hands when the secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible to be placed on consent this month?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1, BOA 22-97, 756 Jefferson Avenue, and that is with a friendly amendment that would read, the variance is void if the existing structure is demolished. That's our first item.
Okay.
Item number 2, BOA 22-104, 1437 Castalia Street. Item number 3, BOA 22-107, 1828 Faxon Avenue, and that's as a hold for 1 month. Item number 7, BOA 22-132, 572 Leith Street. Item number 8, BOA 22-133, 567 Bon Air Street. Item number 9, BOA 22-134, 34.
Mr. Ragsdale, I'm sorry, I missed it. I'd like to pull off item number 8, please.
Okay. So item number 8 is not going to be on consent. Item number 9, BOA 22-134, 3488 Overton Crossing Street. Item number 10, BOA 22-135, 6560 Poplar Avenue. Item number 11, BOA 22-136, 851 Majestic Avenue. Item number 12, BOA 22-137, 862 Majestic Avenue. Item number 13, BOA 22-138, 863 Majestic Avenue. Item number 14, BOA 22-139, 871 Majestic Avenue. Item number 15, BOA 22-140, 4970 Summer Avenue, and that's a hold for 1 month. Item number 17, BOA 22-143, 1471 East Brooks Road. Item number 20, BOA 22-146, 323 Williford Street as a hold for 1 month. And those are the items that are eligible for consent.
Okay. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the Secretary, which is agenda item 1 as amended, 2 approval with conditions, 3 as a hold, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 as approval with conditions, 15 as a hold, 17 approval with conditions, and 20 as a hold.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I will remind the board before voting on the consent agenda that he or she affirms that he has read the staff report as a full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, and if I could, I did not catch who made the motion. I think that Mr. Claybrook seconded, so Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Claybrook? Yes. Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Mr. Melasry?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes. So if you're here for any of those cases that were just on the consent agenda, you have either been held or approved as requested. And so, Mr. Secretary, we call our first case we are going to hear today.
Yes, sir. It's item number 4, BOA 22-129, 2485 Princeton Avenue.
Okay, is the applicant here? You want to come down front, sir? Is there any opposition to this case? You can go ahead and come to the front row if you'd like to. Mr. Davis, would you give us a staff report, please?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, members of the board and members of the public. My name is Brett Davis. I'll be presenting case BOA 22-129. This is a request for several variances from the contextual infill standards related to a proposed house in Binghamton. Just got a few slides to take you through. This property is located at 2485 Princeton Avenue. The owner and applicant is Pipe Dreams Properties. And the four variances particularly are to increase the maximum setback. The contextual infill standards require you to be within the range of setbacks of the houses on either side of you, 2 lots over in either direction. To allow a non-conforming street-facing garage. Again, street-facing garages are allowed in contextual infill standards only when significantly back from the street or if they're already part of the predominant pattern on that block face, which they are not. Additionally, the contextual infill standards require a front porch and require a raised ground floor of 18 inches or 3 steps if those features are predominant on the block face, which they are in this case. And neither of those features is included in the plans before you today. The area is 0.09 acres and it is zoned residential single-family 6. We're looking right in the middle of the city in the Binghamton neighborhood. Here is that subdivision plat, which puts to rest the eternal question of, is there a P in Binghamton? The answer is no. So we see that it is half of a lot right here in block 15. It has since been split into 2 a long time ago, and it is considered exempt from the subdivision requirements by deed. Here's a vicinity map showing all of the property owners that received notice of last month's hearing. 81 notices were mailed, and we did receive 2 letters of opposition. This was on your agenda last month. The applicant requested a 1-month hold related to the number of board members that were present. Zooming in, here's a satellite photo of the context, also showing zoning district boundaries. So just to the west, we see that there is a local landmarks district. This property is not in a local landmarks district. And the land use is mostly single-family residential, although you see that all of these brown shaded parcels are multifamily, which includes duplexes in this map. Here is a view of the lot. This is two lots right here that are vacant right next to each other. So the subject parcel's right in front of us. It's 150 feet deep, 20 feet wide. Here's a view east down Princeton. There's an unimproved alley in the back, which you can see here. And just for some context, since that's what we're talking about today, here are lots just next to the subject property, also on 25-foot parcels. And this shows you the sort of front porch, raised ground floor, setback range, and parking that is common here and is what we would like to see continued. Here is the site plan. So it's a little bit over 30 feet setback from the street. There's a 9-foot driveway leading to a front garage. And overall, it's a 2-floor house. Here's an elevation from the front door and front garage, and the back porch, and the sides. There's also a floor plan and a section in your staff report. For setback context, this blue line is 30 feet from the back of the sidewalk. The applicant would like to have the house a little bit further back than that, although if approved, we put a 30-foot maximum setback condition in. The houses on either side, particularly this one and these 2, which is what we'd be looking at per the UDC standards, are between 18 and 20 feet setback. That does not include the front porches. All right. So in conclusion, those are the 4 variances that have been requested today. A building permit for this house was filed in July. It was, of course, flagged for zoning revisions. The applicant declined to redesign. This was a stock house plan that had been purchased and instead filed this variance request. The applicants argued that the lot's narrowness is an unusual physical characteristic as compared to other lots in the district that warrants these variances to be able to provide additional off-street parking, right? So the setback would allow a car to park in the driveway. The garage obviously would allow a car to park in the garage. And staff disagrees with this unusual characteristic because several of the houses in this context have the same width as this lot. In our view, to replace an existing on-street parking space with a curb cut leading to a garage privatizes an existing public good without resulting in a net gain in parking. And to increase the maximum setback to allow for a second off-street parking space impairs the code's intent of consistent front setbacks. And we also find that the lack of a raised ground floor and front porch would have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood's traditional character. So finally, number 5, staff does find that it is both practical and preferable to build a house in this lot in accordance with the contextual infill standards, and we do recommend rejection. However, should you decide to approve this case, we recommend the 4 conditions on your screen. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions of the board for Mr. Davis? All right. Thank you, sir. Is it Mr. Batts?
No, Martin Perry.
Martin Perry, if you'll give your name and address for the record for me.
All right, Martin Perry, Jr., 5382 Seattle Road, Memphis, Tennessee, 38119.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, share with us about this.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Or could you, what are you, we have the staff report. What would be your response to why you should get the variance as a...
I mean, I just want to keep on building over there in the area. My friends and I, we've been building up the area now for about 4 years. On this project, I wanted to do something just a little bit different. There's been a lot of crime over there lately, so I definitely wanted to add a garage to every property that I do in the area. But this one right here was very limited on space, so the only place I could put the garage was in the front. There's no alley access back there. On the photos, it showed the alley not even being usable right now, so I decided to go with that. I called to verify to see if the property was in the historical district, Leeswood, and it wasn't, so I decided to purchase the plan. I didn't think that it would be anything that would stop us from doing this project, so we tried to move forward on it and got stopped.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Perry?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Perry, would you consider building a home without a front-facing garage there?
I mean, if it was me building my house, I would want a garage. And the reason why I want to incorporate garages is just for a safety factor.
Because why?
It's because of a safety factor. Most people that are getting new houses built, they want a garage.
Well, what if you could get the garage in the back and then you could fence it and you'd still have the security?
Yeah, but the alley isn't done back there. It's not paved back there.
Okay, well, here's what I was thinking, and it might not work. Is it okay for me to do this, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
And a question to him?
Yes.
Okay. I think that the side yard requirement is 2.5 feet, isn't it? Is that correct?
The side
On a
yard setback
25-foot
is
lot?
actually 3.12 feet on either side here.
It's how many?
It's just over 3 feet on either side.
No, I'm talking about in the UDC, the required side setback is 2.5 feet on a 25-foot lot. Is that correct?
So the side setbacks here would be governed by Article 10 as a non-conforming lot. So there's a calculation that goes into it. And
There's more calculation. Well, this might not work then. I was just thinking that, if you could do a 2-foot setback on one side, and then you could do a 8-foot driveway, that'll give you enough, you get past the house. And seen some homes that are 15 feet wide, 2 stories, open floor plan. Like I say, then you get your car back to the back. So I'm just throwing that out there because it offers an opportunity for you to go ahead and put a house on that property and not violate the rules. And you could fence it where your vehicle would be safe. And you could put a front porch on it, raised foundation, all the things that the infill compatibility standards require. And I think it might work. That way you could go ahead and build your home. Just something to consider.
Mr. Davidson, this is a 20-foot lot, correct?
25.
25, okay.
Any less than 25 feet and you lose your status as a legal non-conforming lot.
Gotcha, okay. Any other questions for Mr. Perry?
Well, can I say
Yeah,
one more thing?
absolutely.
I hope you'll maybe consider doing that so you can build on your lot. And I would just ask one more thing. You know, a gable roof, not that side roof thing with no attic. I think it would just fit in with the neighborhood better. You'd have attic for the hot air to go up into and so on. Store things, all that. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions of the applicant? Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I definitely did have a problem with being in line with the rest of the houses on the street. There was no problem at all. I definitely agree to that. Even as far as the height of the house, I think it was the height of the slab. I didn't have a problem with that being in line with everything that's on the street. So I don't have any issues with addressing it and make those things work.
Any other questions? All right, is there any opposition to this case that's here? I didn't think so, okay. So what we'll do now is we'll get a motion. Once we have the motion, we can then discuss it to vote. So would somebody be willing to give the motion to approve BOA 22-129 as conditioned by staff?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Perry, is it? Yeah. I applaud Mr. Perry's ambition for wanting to do something in the neighborhood. I think, though, the problem that, and I'll try to speak for maybe staff and board, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think the problem that we have with it, it's out of context. Out of context being the roof, the garage, it's visible on the front. It seems to be a standard stock plan. I think I heard him say he purchased it. We don't want to discourage people from building in that neighborhood or any neighborhood. However, we do want it to be in context, and I think it might be, if Mr. Perry might take a notion to take another look. And Mr. Perry, I'm talking to you without talking to you. I'm talking to my board members, but I think it would be advantageous if you have the dollars and cents to put a little money in, maybe an architect or a building designer who might help you with that facade and fix it where it would look like some of the other structures in the area, but have the modernization that you want, and figure out a way to hide that garage to maybe make it look like a window or something that could be there, and maybe not have a full concrete 8-foot driveway, maybe 2 3-foot, 3.5-foot strips of concrete with grass in the middle. You could actually drive into the front of it. It lets down. It has frosted windows and something to fit better in the context of the neighborhood, I think. And if you maybe would come back to us, we might be able to maybe take another look at it. I would hope he would take a look at that. Because as it stands right now, I can't vote for it in the context it's in. But I would love to see it come back in another context.
Understood. Other comments? I would second what Mr. Jackson said. So I can't vote for it like it is. I might could vote for something different. I think we have two options. I don't know how everybody else is going to vote. I know we got two people probably that are voting no, so you'd have to get unanimous everywhere else to approve. You could ask for are we still available for a hold? We held once, correct?
We did, but, and I would say that the current motion is on the table to approve with the staff conditions, which do not allow a straight-facing garage, require a front porch,
Right.
require raised elevation. So if you were, I mean, you could vote to reject it outright, or the motion is to approve it with those conditions, which would achieve, I think, the things that you are talking about. So that would be
Okay.
one option, is to vote to approve it with those conditions which achieve those things, or vote to hold it, and if the applicant wanted to go back and try to modify things that might hit the middle of it or something. But our recommendation is to keep those conditions, and then that would still allow the redesign of it to meet the context we believe. So those are the two options. It's to either vote to approve it with the conditions, you could amend the conditions, or vote to hold it.
Point of clarification, if the approval as conditioned would allow all of the requested variances, so it would allow the front-facing garage, it would waive the front porch and raised ground floor requirements, and it would extend the front setback.
Okay.
These are so it would set a maximum front setback of 30 feet and require that the garage be at least 3 feet behind the front wall of the house, require the ribbon design that was just mentioned for the driveway, but it would grant the 4 requested variances up.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. We have like 4 other cases after this that I'm considering, so yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I think I know where we're, okay. So here's what my friendly advice, we could hold this though, correct? If you wanted to hold to bring back a different plan that maybe could get approved, like as Mr. Jackson said, he'd be more willing to look at a forward-facing garage if it didn't, to restate what he said, I think, didn't look like a garage.
Exactly.
You know, was creative in the front by having it be more see-through looking or something, even if it's frosted, some things like that. We could do that. We could hold it to give you some time to do that. Or the other option is see what happens, it gets rejected, and you have more filing fees and stuff like that to come back for. So if you want us to hold it again for you to talk to somebody about it, you can, or you can just roll the dice and see what happens.
So even if I did a situation where you guys approved it with these special conditions that I've already agreed to, and I also changed the garage, is that an option without holding it?
I think based on the conditions in here, I'm not willing to vote for this at this point, based on the 30-foot setback and the garage only being 3 feet behind the house. Maybe a different garage, I would vote for to be 3 feet behind the house or behind the front, but I'd want to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. I would meet the setback that you guys are requesting and also change the garage. So I'm asking, would you approve it based on those steps, and I get that over to you?
Okay. You can ask, well, the other board members, with these recommendations, I will not vote yes with these conditions. That was what they said if we chose not to reject, we could do. I would want to see the garage before I vote to allow you, like, I don't want you to change it after the fact. I'd want to see it with the way this looks. So that's what I would say.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I think we really need to see it. So if we have to vote on it as it is today, I'm going to vote to reject it.
All right, so, I mean, from my standpoint, I'm okay with holding it at that point. Then.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
as far as-
What I would suggest is come back with something that looks a little bit different, that looks a little bit more like the neighborhood and the problem with that for you is you got a plan, but I just think this plan ain't gonna work. That's kind of what we're saying, I guess, or at least 2 of us are saying, and possibly 3 if I could read Ms. Baker's mind based on her comments. But I think she had a good idea. I mean, like, it might be that you come back with something different where right now you have the 3 and an 8, I think is 3.125. You know, I'd be willing to go 2 on one side to have 8 on the other if you want to pull something in the back. And that gives you the ability to do a front porch and some different things like that, and even more secure parking. But, everything costs money. I get it. But that's just advice from one person. I'm not speaking for the whole board. Anybody else have any comments before we? Okay, so it's a procedural vote to go for the hold, so we don't have to retract that. So would anybody give me a motion for a hold on this case?
So moved.
Second.
Go Jackson and Savage Towns on that. And then all those in favor of hold signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hearing none. All right, best of luck to you to find something that maybe fits a little bit better. All right, thank you. Mr. Secretary, we call the next case, please.
So it's item number 5, BOA 22-130, 130 Harbor Commons Drive. And I will say that I believe that there is no opposition. We thought there was opposition, but the card was actually from the representative. So if the representative can come forward and clarify that, we can still hear the presentation or anything, but it was on consent. But we
Gotcha. So did you, well, go ahead and give your name and address for the record, if you will.
My name's Todd Tigner. My address is 5294 Crestview Drive, Memphis, Tennessee 38134.
Okay,
I represent the Cushmans.
Cool.
In this matter.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Now, did you have any questions about this, or did you just turn in a card?
I just want some clarification.
Okay, yeah. Why don't you go ahead and start with your questions, and maybe we can get you clarified. And
There was the neighbor next door to the Cushmans that wrote a letter of opposition concerning the location of the pool equipment, and made a recommendation that the pool equipment go on the opposite side of the home, which would actually be facing the front of many other homes, which would require more variances needed. So their concern was that it would be behind the existing air conditioners, but we've changed that and we've put it in front, so it faces the alley now. The two air conditioners are in the back, and the pool equipment will be right there where the arrow is.
okay.
And there'll be a gate surrounding it. Now, next to it is an unattached garage, so it's not anywhere near their living space. So I just want a clarification that there's not going to be a problem with that.
I'll look to staff to answer that question on the.
No, I think when I spoke to you on the phone, we kind of cleared that up, that it would be fine where you're placing it. Because I did respond back to the person that was in opposition with where it was initially on this one. Because initially it shows the pool equipment on this side, which would have been closer to their to the bedrooms. So the first one, which was here, is where they moved it. So therefore, the noise would not impact the bedrooms. Because it would affect both the applicant and the neighbor.
Sure.
So we cleared that up from the door.
All right, very good.
Perfect.
Okay, do you have anything else? Do you want to hear the case, or are you okay with that clarification? We can just vote on it.
I'm fine.
Okay, then I'm going to see if we can get a motion from the board to approve BOA 22-130 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Savage, Townsend, Jackson. Any discussion? All right, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Ragsdale, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Mr. Melasry?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, been approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Mr. Ragsdale, will you read our next case for us?
Item number 6, BOA 22-131, 52 Angeles Street.
All right. See the applicant's here. Is there any opposition to this case? No? Mr. Skinner, will you give us a staff report?
Yes. And if it's okay with the secretary, we were gonna see if we could kind of hear this case along with case 2022-144, since they're on the exact same lot.
Okay,
And very similar requests.
That's 18, right?
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
So if that's okay with you, I was gonna.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay. All right, so Lucas Skinner with the Division of Planning and Development. So this is BOA 2022-131 and 2022-144. So these are multiple variances, essentially allowing smaller lot within area for two new homes, street-facing garages, and rear yard setback encroachments at 52 Angeles. So the lot as is or was, I guess, a community garden along Angeles Street. It's across the street from the parking lot for the Cash Saver in Midtown. Some context for zoning and land use. It is currently zoned RU3 in the Midtown overlay. There are lots of existing 1907 sort of craftsman bungalows along the eastern side of Angeles, and then again, the Cash Saver across the street. Some site photos. Again, that's a somewhat current view of the lot in the left. So again, it's been a community garden for years. The photo on the right is just to give a tiny bit of context as to what some of the properties look like there along Angeles. To get into some of the history of the lot, so one of the things that the applicant is essentially trying to split this currently 50-foot lot back into two 25-foot lots. So that's where sort of each case comes in, because each case would then have 25 feet. So this request specifically is lots 111 and 112. So in this survey, the other one is 109 and 110. If you look back at the Sanborn maps, the one in the middle, this is from 1907, shows a 50-foot lot with a dwelling, as well as lots to the south and to the north. You get over to 1952, and the block is essentially almost as is with dwellings. So though the plat was potentially platted for about 12.5-foot lots, I would almost beg to differ that they've never really been that little, considering that the Sanborn maps show from 6 years later that they've been 50 feet since. So these are the site plans for each of the cases. The one on the left being the 131 case, and the one on the right is the 144 case. They're slightly similar site plans in that each would have a front-facing garage here at the front with drives leading to both. One would have a front porch here on the side. One leads to more of a porch with a foyer going in. So to get where we are with the lots, we do have in the nonconformity section of the code, in section 10, that when you are trying to revert a lot back to a nonconforming size, it does have to meet some criteria if you want to use it for single family. So you walk down through the criteria, but the last of them is that the lot has to have remained separate and individual ownership from any adjoining tracts of land continuously since March 1st, 1989. After a tiny bit of research on the Register of Deeds, this lot and the one to the south, that's case 145 that we will hear, has twice in its ownership since essentially 2002 been owned by the same owner. So Daniel Teeter until August 2021, when it then transferred to the same company for both lots until this September. So they do not meet that requirement. Essentially for these lots, very similar to the case that we heard earlier with Mr. Davis, for that plan, we don't feel that the proposed plans or the lot in general meet the context and the character of the neighborhood that they are currently in. Getting into that, we found that out of the 29 residential properties that are there along the east side of Angeles, 22 do currently meet what would we consider for contextual infill, so raised foundations, front porches, and either non-street facing garages or drives that extend well beyond the front facade. This picture right here shows a home that, whether or not we probably like it, got passed when it was not actually supposed to by our staff, which is, certainly happens with technology these days. But that's just an example of something that has been built recently on that block. There was a letter of opposition. This was technically for the 144 case, although I do feel that it applies for both from Midtown Memphis. So with that, we are recommending rejection for both cases. If approved, we do have the standard condition 1, but condition 2 would essentially be for the applicant to submit a site plan and elevations for both that meets all of the contextual infill standards. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Do you mind, for my benefit, going back to like when you're going over the buildable legal lot status? Can you go over that one time a little slower for me?
Yeah.
I deal with that a lot, and I just want to make sure I understand the rule on that.
Sure.
Okay.
So unlike the case that we heard with Mr. Davis, with Brett, since that law was already existing as 25 feet, these have been existing as 50-foot lots. There is a plat showing that looks like they were potentially 12 and a half feet at some point in time. So the applicant is sort of trying to combine, if you think of it in fours, like 2 together to have 25 feet, but still splitting this 50-foot lot into 2. The UDC for lots like this has this trigger where, so if they were just to have one lot and this lot was not owned by the same, was not owned by the same owner on either side, so they don't have a chance, let's say, to get extra width or size because they own a lot nearby, adjoining lot. That's essentially what this trigger means. So if you own another lot and since 1989, then the lot essentially cannot be reverted back to a non-conforming size because you've had a chance at some point to get extra width or size at some point in time, and it has not happened. So here we are.
And what would be when did that, at what point is that triggered though? Like, what is the minimum lot width just under the code, I guess?
So in this is a little confusing because all 3 of the cases are slightly, 2 of them are the same. For these 2, since they're single family, they have to have 45 feet of width.
Okay.
And a lot size of 6,000 square feet.
Gotcha. Okay.
Very similar to an R6 district, essentially.
That makes
Mr.
sense.
Chairman?
I wasn't thinking about the total square footage either. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Can I make a comment on that? I think it might clear it up just a little bit more. This is how I've always looked at this. These old plats, didn't you say this one was from 1907?
It was platted in 1901, yes.
1901. When did we adopt zoning? In the late 20s?
Yes.
Yes. So these plats were recorded before we had zoning. So there was no minimum lot size, no minimum lot width, none of that. They were just real estate plats.
Right.
So they could say, you can buy this one, this one, and this one.
Right.
And so people came in, and most people bought 2, some bought 3. Every once in a while, somebody would buy 1. And so when zoning came in, we were starting to drive cars more, and we just needed more room on our lots. And but they didn't want those people who had bought one lot not to be able to use their lot. And so the non-conforming regulations were put in the zoning ordinance at that time, saying If it was one of those lots where you bought two or you bought three and it's always been like that, you can't break them back apart legally. But if it's always been one, then you can. And so that, I hope that clears it up a little bit. That's how I look at it.
That makes sense. And I deal with the legal lot stuff all the time. I don't know if I've ever dealt with it that small to ever trigger any of those rules. Usually it's big enough, it just wasn't platted properly. So thank you all that's something I never had to think about. So that'll be helpful for me. Maybe not on this case, but in life. Are there any other questions of the staff?
I did. Can you go back to the development that was being built that passed through? I just want to see the design.
Like this one, is this what you're talking
Yes.
about? Okay.
Yes.
We had to maybe give a tiny bit of context as to the picture. We'd actually commented the same things that this applicant is essentially asking for.
Okay.
It unfortunately it got through the system, however it did, and unfortunately got through. But this was kind of just to show somewhat of what a house like this on like a 50-foot lot would look like on this block.
Of the new house on the right side, is that a garage next to the front door?
Yes,
Okay,
right here.
Okay. And then, do we have I may have missed it, a front elevation of this house? I have a floor plan.
No, we didn't really get any.
Okay. Okay, any other questions of staff?
So I'm going to go back to that. So if they have an elevation similar to that, would that be something we would consider? Since that would pass through, I mean, basically now you're creating a trend, if we will, on that street. So if we allow that one, if their elevation comes back, because I don't, know exactly how
Right, we're not
much.
trying to allow it.
Okay.
So they would, similar to like Mr. Davis's case, to at least have, if it is going to be a front-facing garage, to at least be set back beyond the front plane, something like that.
Okay, because they're going to reference this.
Oh,
if they,
absolutely,
right.
yes.
So I'm just trying to save us
Absolutely.
some
yes.
back and forth.
We were well
Or
aware of it. but
give them some
before.
direction, if you will,
Yes.
at what may pass muster.
Right, and
Say
that's
like
why
that.
I wanted to bring it up, because we
Okay.
actually tried to stop this, and it just accidentally got through.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that house is more built at grade, not 18 inches above, right?
Correct.
With that garage being able to get in and everything.
Correct. It does not meet any of our typical contextual infill regulations.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? All right. If you'll give your name and address for the record for me.
Jason McNeary, 3368 Johnson Street.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Go ahead and talk to us about this case.
Okay, I purchased the lot on Angeles based off the content that was existing on the street, as he just told you. I purchased it for $45K, planning to build that elevation that I showed you, the front-facing garage. So also, on 72 Angeles is another house that has a front-facing garage and doesn't meet any of the requirements also, according to their code.
What address?
72.
72 Angeles.
You can't really see it. It's actually at the end of this picture, but it essentially looks like a two-story garage with a gable roof. There's no front door that faces the street. It's just a two-car garage with metal sheathing on the second-story siding. It literally looks like a garage.
Mr. Chairman, was that house built before the adoption of the Unified Development Code in 2010?
No, I
Built
saw a
after
building
that?
permit from 2013 for it.
Oh, okay.
So can you
tell us how that one got through.
I don't know, because when looking at the documents that were submitted, there were no elevations. I don't know if the reviewers were just trying to look at, from just like a bird's eye and trying to, I'm sure they looked at it more. I don't really know. Yeah.
Well, I can make a suggestion. The UDC didn't go into effect until a year after it was adopted. And my guess is a lot of the people at code enforcement just didn't understand it, didn't know the contextual infill standards. And, that happened when we first had a landscape ordinance. For a while, people just didn't understand it, and some things got missed.
That's, because that's a hard argument when we're trying to say stick to the neighborhood, and now the neighborhood is obviously changing when we have 3 homes now that are more modern than the normal average. So we can't make that long-standing, this is the way it was and always has been. Now we have several pop-ups with a different.
Right, although out of 29 properties, 2 look like that. 1 should not have even gotten through. So just maybe keep that math in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. McNair, do you want to talk to us about anything else?
Okay, and
Yeah, go ahead.
also, based off the language in the staff report, the lot square footage has to be 6,000 square feet, correct?
Yes.
Also, 128 Angeles is only 4,000 square feet. Also, so it's short. It don't meet the field requirements or anything for it. So my plans and lot is not detrimental to it's not non-conforming for the community, but the code is non-conforming to the community.
Correct. I don't disagree with you on that something needs to be done. Like, there's got to be a variance in order to get anything through. I think the problem, speaking for myself, not on the board, is the biggest problem. I don't think anybody probably has a big problem with the 4,000 square feet when that's what we are dealt. You got, especially if you're going to be on a larger lot, and that's not too different. It's really more the contextual infill is your better argument on, like, hey, they're already doing this here. Mm-hmm. You probably won't get much pushback on the size, is my guess.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm trying to do this 15-foot wide home with the front-facing garage, and I'm only encroaching my rear setback because I'm 20 feet. Like he said, you got to be 20 feet for the front-facing structure. So if I was to go 13 feet off the street like they originally are, I wouldn't even encroach my rear setback.
Any questions for Mr. McNeary?
Do we have, is this suggested, looking at case number 18, the page 12, is this the recommended or proposed elevations that we have that are similar to the ones in the other case with the garage? I don't know if you see it, but do we have elevations? I know we have one proposed in 18. Is this the same one for both 18 and 6?
Yeah, we have a floor plan, but no elevations, correct?
18 has.
Oh, okay. I didn't
page
see that.
12, if we're looking at them together.
Oh, gotcha, thanks.
So I was trying to just
No,
determine.
there's 2 different homes.
Okay, so that's different than how yours
It's not the
is.
same elevation, but I
Okay.
was trying to get a variance for the garage and the setback.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. So we do not have an elevation for item numbers. Well, that's a different one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, number
6.
No, we did not receive one for number 6.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Do you have, right now, you already own just 25 feet?
Yes,
You don't
I-
own, the
I
50
purchased-
feet still not?
No, I
together?
purchased lot 111, 112,
Gotcha.
45K, I already
Okay.
closed.
11 and 12. Because the other one is owned by Mr. Perry.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Do you have an idea of the proposed elevations? I know we got floor plans, but
Yes, I do. It is on my phone. I don't know how I would blow it up and show everybody, but
Lucas, do we still have the little thing where if you put the phone down, we could show on the screen, maybe? A little overheady deal?
I don't think so. I don't see it.
Can he email the elevation?
I don't see the tray thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could email that picture to Lucas and he'd be able to pull it up, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well.
Here we have two lots that want to build. I think it's deep as that. Even with the two.
Yeah, right. I guess, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing, so I guess we have it.
I wouldn't have known how to use it at all, so don't worry. Yeah.
not for me. I'm the world's worst.
Kind of interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
oh.
So we can't see the side, but is there a front door to the side of the
To the
garage
side,
that we
yes.
can't see?
Want me to cut the light down?
Do you know where that house is?
Oh,
Okay, so that, yeah, that's computer, but it's based on the plan.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a
I see
plan.
now. First I was like, that's a nice landscaping for a
Right.
new house, already grown up.
I do just like it if you want me to.
Yeah,
The landscape.
yeah. One thing I think about with that house a little bit is I'm thinking about at least it has a porch.
yeah, up top.
Not on the ground, but there's a porch.
I don't understand, is the front door around the side of the house?
Yeah, the front door would be to the right.
Side of
Or
the
no, right
house.
there, yeah, behind the
Yeah.
tree and the
Wow.
column.
We're actually not behind the tree, but
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. McNeary? And do you have any other comments?
Just based off what y'all tell me.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And we're going to move to the opposition. So I have a card here for Ms. Webb. All right, you can have a seat. And Ms. Webb, if you'll come up and give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Juanita Webb, and I live at 54 North Angeles, directly next door to this
Okay.
lot.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
Getting more information about this project, it doesn't sound like a bad project for our neighborhood. Most of the houses, as they said, are single-family dwellings with a driveway. My family and I have lived in that neighborhood. I think my parents purchased the house next door in 1939. I was sitting there thinking about it. So I've always been in the neighborhood, someone from my family. The house that you see on the left here, they have been in construction for the last 3 years, so it's not finished.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I don't know if it's because of the virus or what, but they have not finished it. They work on it, then they're gone for 6 or 7 weeks, and then they come back and they might put up a board or something, but nothing has been done for a long time, okay? The house that they did talk about, there was a fire at that house just years ago, and they did create the narrow house with the entrance on the side. There is no porch on that current house. Seeing the picture for the first time, it does not seem like it would be bad for my neighborhood. We're only concerned about the parking in that area with the front-facing garage. A lot of times, if people have more than one car, there's not a lot of parking on that area. We wanted to make sure that the driveway did not mess up the sidewalk, because we do have a walking club on my street. And then the other thing, the back, if they move the house back too far, there is a ditch in the back of us, which I was concerned about. But I'm excited about the new construction for the house. They did talk about the garden that had been there for years. We've had several events there in the community with our neighborhood watch. We want something done. We were just concerned that it wasn't going to be favorable for the houses in the neighborhood, because there is a modern look to those houses, and our houses are very old.
How many, looks like most of the lots in the neighborhood are closer to 50 feet wide, where this is more like, I mean, well, not more like it.
Yeah, it's
It would
gonna be
exactly
skinny,
half
and
that.
we were worried about that too. Most of the houses just have one level.
Yeah, you kind of can see
Okay.
like 2 rooms from the front as opposed to a single room from the front.
Yeah, I think in my house, yeah, there are 2.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, it is a concern, but
Is the new one that they're still building, board by board, it's wider though, right? Because it has a garage
yes, it's
and.
wider. Again, there was a fire at that house. They tore it down, and
Yeah.
they got this approved, but it's just been so long coming.
Right. Okay. Any other questions from Ms. Webb?
No, thank you for hearing my
Yeah.
concerns.
Thank you for coming down.
Okay.
All right, Mr. McNary, if you want to, you have a couple minutes to rebut if you'd like. You may not have any rebuttal.
I really don't. But,
Okay.
I did want to say something about.
Yeah, come on up. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say anything you don't have to say anything in rebuttal. You can just have a closing statement if you need one. It doesn't have to be addressing anything she said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring nice housing to this area. You get what I mean? And
Yeah.
it was a blighted, vacant lot, and I think a house would look way better there, basically. So.
Okay. All right. Okay, with that, let's get a motion to approve BOA 2022-131 as conditioned by staff. All right, moved by Jackson and seconded by Claybrook. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Number one, I'm impressed with the photograph of the elevation that he showed. And, but if we were going to go with that, I would prefer to hold it and it be brought back as an elevation, drawing that we knew somebody was able to implement. I just don't know about approving it on seeing a picture. The other thing that I struggle with on all of these really is the issue that, I forgot what your name is, neighbor that's lived there since
Well.
39. Yeah, West, Miss West, yes. Number one, to make that front-facing garage work, you're gonna have to set it back more, because you gotta have at least enough space to store one vehicle in front of the house. You can't always have it in the garage. And like she said, you may have more than one. And so it paves a lot of the front yard. You can use the strips, but it takes away any opportunity to have any real landscaping out there. So if the other board members think that's a good solution to this long strip of properties along Angeles, then I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of it. This area is getting ready to come in its own. We got new apartments that have been built. They're very nice. Some of the nicest, I think, that have been built in Midtown. Properties are being renovated. There's just a lot going on that you can tell it's time for this neighborhood to blossom. This particular strip along Angeles, I think you have to be careful and think about the whole, as you're doing it, because if you don't, it's going to look like you didn't think about the whole. It's going to be unplanned looking. And so those are all the things that I struggle with, although I was impressed with that photograph. But I've seen homes that are built on 25-foot lots, that have an 8-foot driveway that gets to the backyard that are very nice too. Some on Carr Avenue in Idlewild, where I live. And so anyway, those are all my concerns about this. And I'm certainly not strongly against it, with the new facade and all that, but you got to realize that all that other stuff comes into play too.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think what's helpful on this one is that top porch, even though the garage isn't further back than the front door, makes it feel further back. And so, which is talking about the Princeton case again, that's an idea an architect or somebody can put to it, trying to soften that front. I think that was the picture from the plan, but at the same time, what we are changing here is it's not as far as the first one off the context of the neighborhood, but it's still off the context of the neighborhood. 2 front-facing garages out of almost 30 is not half the neighborhood. It's a couple of them. So I think it's starting something new, and it's starting something new on a much thinner lot than what the neighborhood has, and I'm struggling with that. So I don't know if the picture, although I like the way it looked, is enough when you start thinking, well, now we're putting skinny houses on something. I understand that's all the lot he has, but check zoning when you buy a lot, as part of it. So I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts? Mr. Jackson.
The image you showed really helped me with it. I think that's a unique looking structure. Is it out of context with the neighborhood as it is? Yes. The width of it, is it out of context with the neighborhood? Yes. But in my mind too, the two that are now existing, one under construction, the other one built, are out of context also. And, you know, context is the key. In a neighborhood, variety, but context has to be there. And I don't know if this really meets that context threshold fully. I don't think it does. But I have a hard time penalizing the individual for what he wants to build, and there's two others that's going on. Like I say, it's only 2 of 29, but it's still 2 of 29. I think Ms. Baker is exactly right that this area is probably got some of the most promise in Midtown as it starts to come back. And we got to safeguard it. You know, I would almost wish that the applicant, and I'm speaking to him without speaking to him, would ask for a 30-day hold like we did the other and modify maybe that elevation that he had to come back again and see if he could make the context of that structure fit the context of the neighborhood. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
I agree with Mr. Jackson was going in the direction I was going in, just to kind of keep continuity on how we dealt with the other case, although separate, very similar in owner and structure. Just giving them time. Love the structure. Am sympathetic to the size, and then of course just keeping with. It's going to change. Neighborhoods are going to change. Whether we like it or not, that's where we're heading. But we do want to keep it and preserve the quality of the neighborhoods that we're going in. And I think if we have neighbors like Ms. Webb that want to see, concerned about her parking, but was excited to see the elevation once she saw it, like most of us, was like, wow, okay, this is nice. This is where we're heading. So there's going to be a blend of the old and new until either one or the other takes over. So I think that's something we have to open our minds to. But Mr. McNary just kind of keeping in continuity in allowing all the properties and, you and the other one to really show us kind of, we're thinking about the neighborhood, but at the same time, we're helping them transcend to the future, right? Does that make sense? So that's, I'm with you, Mr. Jackson, on probably a 30-day hold, just to tweak it a bit, because beautiful elevation. Just give it so we can look at it on paper,
Right. I got you. I didn't want to make it so modern. I kept it kind of craftsman looking, to fit the context. You get what I mean?
Right.
And
so but that's my comment, Mr. Chairman, is to allow him some time, maybe 30-day hold to put it on paper and then tweak it to maybe match the neighborhood.
What would y'all consider, and I love craftsman style homes, they're like my favorite. What would you consider the style of house in that neighborhood? Because it's really a little it's really pre-craftsman, isn't it? I mean, as far as they're a little simpler than a craftsman style.
I think that there are some craftsmen. There might be some minimal traditional in there.
Okay.
But there are definitely some craftsmen.
Yeah. Another thing to consider, and we haven't started talking about number 18 yet, is you have two people that need the same thing. And you can figure out a joint driveway agreement and take even less of the lot to get back there. You can do it with one 10-foot drive instead of two 8-foot drives. And that gets both of you in the back with, I know concrete's not cheap, I get it. But, you can do ribbon strips. You can do a gate. It's even more secure parking, and then pulls everything to the front. And you can really, and I know that's no fun when you've already, like we said before, I've already got a plan, but it might be a better plan all out. Maybe you can use that other plan somewhere else. But I like the way, all in all, it's neat. I like, especially compared to the first one, that porch being up there really makes a difference on getting it in a little bit more like the neighborhood as opposed to the flat front. So I would request the board to hold, if somebody make a motion to hold this case.
So moved. Second.
So Jackson and Claybrook. And so we're going to vote on a hold. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're holding. So dazzle us.
Okay.
But definitely excited about what you're doing in the neighborhood.
Thank you, thank you.
On both of them?
No, we've only voted on the first case.
So that was only on for six?
That was on number 6. So on number 18, we kind of know the details of this and we've seen the thing. Does the applicant want to make any statement on number 18, or would they be willing to take a hold based on what they've heard?
I believe Mr. Perry.
Mr. Perry, you might can read the writing on the wall that we're going to request a hold. So, but I'm sure you've heard everything we've been saying. So, okay. So with your permission, we're going to go ahead and vote on that. Okay. Can I get a motion for a hold for 30 days? All right, Ms. Baker, Ms. Savage Towns. All those in favor of the hold signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the hold carries. All right, Mr. Secretary, could you give us our next case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It's item number 8, BOA 22-133, 567 Bon Air Street.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay. And then, was there any opposition? I know we pulled it off a consent. Ms. Baker, did you have any particular questions? You want to hear it?
I can go right to the point if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll ask the staff member to go to the photograph of the site. Let's see. Forgot what page that was on.
What about like the street view photograph on page 10?
Okay,
Is that the one right there?
page 10, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how this site will work with that guardrail there. I see that last house, and then there's that paved ditch, and then this property, and it seems to be all fenced off with a guardrail. And so I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know who would be the best time to answer this, but that was my question. It almost looks like it's in the right-of-way to me, in the interstate right-of-way.
I will say, I'll let the applicant maybe speak more to do it, but I will say that traffic and engineering did have the opportunity to make comments on it, and we didn't get anything. So for as it being in the right-of-way, I would have had to defer to them, but I'll let the applicant, if he has something to specifically say.
Okay, before you say anything, if you'll give your name and address for the record for me.
It's Felix Cordova, 10 South Main Street, Memphis, Tennessee, 38103.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, go ahead. You can answer that.
Well, as far as the right-of-way, I've lived in Memphis for 19 years. If we were concerned about accidents in the right-of-way, we'd shut down a lot of intersections. I don't think that, I visited this lot several times. The surveyor said that I satisfied all the setbacks, 20-foot front, 5 feet sides, all the back setbacks. And this is just a single-family house. The footprint that we supplied is actually the layout. I don't see any problem with this lot other than the fact that it's an odd shape and the lot could use to have something in it.
Where's the driveway on there?
Well, I wouldn't put a driveway. I was going to do exactly what the next door neighbor house has, and do a little bit more creative, appealing landscaping up front, so that this way it doesn't look like that. I believe the setback for me would be a little bit behind what's being exposed in this photo. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, explain what you want to say it again.
There would not be a driveway. There would be parking in the front, but the landscape and the setting would look more appealing than what's happening at this property right here.
Well, all I'm saying is I don't see a driveway on that site plan, and I don't see any opening where you could get through that guardrail to put one in there.
Well, the guardrail was there for quite some time, and I think they put that together when the property became Tennessee property, when it was repossessed. So there was a house there. That guardrail was added much much more after. But when they built Sam Cooper Boulevard, they actually took over that lot, and eventually the guardrail went up. So the guardrail was added much later in time.
So no driveway, on-street parking, but where the guardrail ends now, you don't have to move the guardrail for access to the property if you're just walking off the sidewalk. There's enough of a gap between the neighbor's yard and the guardrail.
No, you would have to move the guardrail because there is a drainage ditch that separates this lot and the neighbor's lot.
Sorry.
The lot actually right now is 407 square feet, shy of the 6,000 square feet for the R6 requirement. But as I stated earlier, the surveyor said there's no problem with the setbacks for the footprint of this property on all sides.
Yeah, Mr. Jackson.
Cordova, so I have a couple of questions I'd like to get just to clarify this for myself and maybe some of the board members. So one, I understand, or at least from what you said, the guardrail will go away. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. That's one. Two, from what you said, there's not going to be a garage at this house. Is that correct?
No, there won't be.
Okay. And three, you mentioned it's going to look like the house that's to the, I guess, south of you, which would be like a parking pad in the front yard, which
Pretty
you're going to
much,
modify.
but it's going to be
differently.
landscape much more attractive than what's happening in the neighbor's house.
But in essence, you would be on a parking pad in the front of the house with more landscaping. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it your intention to do on-street parking as well?
I wasn't originally intending that at all because it's, 1,000 square, a little 1,300 square foot facility. So it's not really, requiring multi-vehicle requirements.
You've answered my question. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one other question? Who put that guardrail up there? Was it local, was it the state? Was it local government? Was it the owner of the property?
I didn't get the information as far as who put it up there, but it was put in place several years after they separated the subdivision in that area when
But you know that you can take it down, right? You seem to know that you can take it down. That's what I'm not sure about.
I spoke to the department that would handle that, the department that cuts curbs, and he said not a problem to do that. The only thing that I would need is the okay to build. And once I had the okay to build, they would remove the guardrail.
Is there currently behind the guardrail, heading north and south, a chain link fence?
No. Well, there is a chain link fence.
Is that chain link fence on the property line?
It is on the property line.
So is that going away?
Yes, it will.
Okay. I really don't think I have any problem with using that property. I think it's great. We got a piece of property we can now use. It's not that far off of being the lot, and it's an odd shape. I mean, it's a perfect situation for a variance. I mean, that's kind of like you found the one. Like, hey, this is weird. What can I do? I mean, like that's the easy ones for us. I just would, what worries me is that you really only have a little bit of street frontage, even though only because the way the lot goes straight north-south, and then Tennessee still owns that little wedge. Mm-hmm. But if they're willing to get rid of it and let you walk across, what do I care?
Let me just interject that he actually has 75 feet, and his R6 only requires 45 feet. So
Say that again.
In R6 zoning, frontage only requires 45 feet. He actually has
Well,
75.
go back to the tax map, and I'll show you what I mean. And maybe let's do, what's the right of way and what isn't. The road goes away from it. There's a wedge, a triangle between the lot's eastern side and where the street actually is. And that, to me, I would imagine is land owned by the state of Tennessee. That's my issue. And it makes me almost wonder, not that I would want to not approve you or anything, because I think the use is great, does he really own all the way to the street? It looks like there's property. I guess the way the tax map is, somebody else owns that, and it's not the city of Memphis. It's the state. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Does that make sense to?
I think it would be the city of Memphis that
You
would
do?
actually own it, because between his east property line and the street, that would be within the right of way adjacent to the street. Does it make sense? It would have to be almost.
I guess it all depends on what was in the taking. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. And I'm not trying to poo-poo what you're doing.
No, I actually went there and looked at the survey line. Doesn't affect my entry or exit. Gives me plenty of room to maneuver.
Yeah.
It's almost 65 feet going across.
Yeah.
Going across is 75 feet.
And the portion of it running against the thing is that photo doesn't represent what the sidewalk would look like.
Sure.
There isn't one there. And when they do the cut, then you'll have a better perspective of what the sidewalk is going to add to the property. And you don't have that now. But from that department, they said it's not an issue. I just need the okay to build.
Okay. I'm just looking
This
at one thing.
neighborhood definitely has properties that are needing a lot of help, and I want to add to that community and put something there that they are going to be proud of.
Yeah, and again, I think what you're doing is a good use. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just wanted to pull, I'm going to show him. There's no difference between, they just don't even have a tax difference between that and the street. So who knows? So, yeah, if the city's fine with you doing that, it doesn't bother me. As far as the use of the lot, I don't have a problem with fitting that size house in that shape on that lot. Better than having what's there now, for sure. Yeah,
a lot of crazy trees.
Any questions or other comments for the applicant?
I'll just make one comment. It looks like the chain link fence is actually to keep people out of the drainage ditch, so.
Yeah, well, that neighborhood has a problem with dumping. So I'm pretty sure the chain link fence was put up to prevent people from creating a free dump.
Yeah, so just something to consider when you're considering removing it or making the modifications to that lot. But I think, today I'm focused on the variance that's before us on building on that minimum lot size required.
Okay.
Well, my only purpose in bringing it up is that I looked at it and I said, how in the world is he going to get in there?
Right, yeah, no, I get it. And I guess, originally, I don't know what the state took or whatever, but, originally that street went straight through. That neighborhood is what got split up to make it look the way it is. Any other comments? All right, and is there any opposition on this case? Just ask one more time. All right, with that, I assume you guys are ready to discuss, so.
Mr. Chairman, may I also add, we do want to clear one thing, so in this discussion, we would want to, if approved, add a condition or a variance for a front yard parking pad with adequate landscaping, if that's what his intention is, so.
Okay.
So in the.
Because he would need, he needed that, we didn't know he needed that.
Just go ahead and take care of that. And
do we need to say anything about the size of the pad or just allow a front yard parking pad?
I think that would be in line with what the UDC restriction on it is. So to allow a front yard parking pad with adequate landscaping would be in the same wording as the UDC if someone were to.
Okay. So if we can get a motion to approve BOA 22-131 133 as conditioned by staff with the additional condition to approve a front yard parking pad with adequate landscaping.
So moved.
Second.
Savage, Townsend, Jackson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if Mr. Secretary would give us a roll call, please.
Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
Mr. Menagerie?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Ms. Baker? Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
You've been approved. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Secretary, will you call our next case?
Yes, sir. Item number 16, BOA 22-141, 1492 Vera Cruz Street.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay. And then here, I signed those as well. Yeah. All right, I do see some opposition as well. All right. Ms. Cobbs, if you could give us a staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Kendra Cobbs with Planning and Development. And I apologize, this is my first time up here. I'm trying to get my...
We'll be nice.
I appreciate that. Oh, there we go. There we go. So this is BOA 2022-141. It is a variance application located at 1492 Vera Cruz Street, and the applicant is Carl Long. The variance request is from sections 2.7.2B and 2.7.2D4, as well as 2.7.2D1 to allow an accessory structure that is taller than the principal building, and also to allow conversion of the accessory structure to an accessory dwelling unit, which would be greater than the maximum size allowed. So looking at the map, this is located at the northeast corner of Vera Cruz Street and Wheaton Avenue. And the zoning is residential single family 6. And that's the surrounding zoning within the neighborhood. And the land use is single family. And looking at an aerial of the site, we have an aerial from 2022 to the left. This is the principal structure in the front, and then the variance request is for the accessory use that's located in the rear of the lot, which you can somewhat see by the outline here in the shade in the back, and an aerial from 2008, which is as far back as I could get an aerial from our historic maps. So looking at photographs of the site, this is from Vera Cruz Street. You have the front of the house that's actually in both images. And in the image to the right, you can kind of see the top of the roof of the accessory structure in this area. And then looking at images from Wheaton Avenue, we have the principal or the main house right here, and then the accessory structure is located here in the back. Also in the image to the right, you can see the accessory structure right here. So this is an existing 2-story accessory structure that it appears has been permitted since 1983. And looking at a site plan, we have the principal building, and it, of course, faces Veracruz Street. And off to the side, Wheaton Avenue. This site plan shows part of the proposal to place a concrete drive and a new curb cut. And looking more at the accessory structure, what is proposed on the first floor, there is an a screened-in porch that is towards the front portion of the first floor. And the applicant is proposing to make that a family room and a half bath. And then in the rear, there will be a full-size kitchen. And also proposed on the second floor are 2 bedrooms and a full bath. Also, part of the proposal is a porch that would come off of this area that currently is screened in. So the applicant will want to enclose the screened-in porch. This application is consistent with the Memphis 3.0 comprehensive plan. And in conclusion, the applicant is seeking a variance, and that would allow this existing accessory structure, be it that it is 2-story and the principal building or the main house is 1-story, it would allow it to be, the accessory structure to be taller than the main building, and also allow the size, which is more than the maximum of an accessory dwelling unit. And this is as already stated, a detached 2-story accessory structure. It's 1,296 square feet. The applicant does not propose increasing that footprint. And per the assessor's record, this was constructed and permitted in 1983. So staff is recommending approval of this application with conditions. The first one being that the screened-in portion that is shown on the first floor, we're asking that that condition of that screened-in porch remain as is. And so it would not include the family area and the half bath. And that's because of the size of this accessory structure. That's just a condition that has been placed in order to try to lessen some of the impact of the size of the accessory structure, if approved. Also, any changes or deviation from the site plan would be required to be approved by the zoning administrator and the department. 1 additional parking space for each 500 square feet of the accessory dwelling unit is required on site, and that should be, the parking should be placed either on the side or at the rear of the property. The accessory dwelling should be architecturally consistent with the principal structure, and no windows other than clear-story windows should be permitted along the property line. And that concludes the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I got a couple questions for you, Ms. Cobbs. Can you, it's just too small for me to see, how, just the structure itself, what's the length and width of it?
So for the accessory structure?
Yes.
Let's see.
Like maybe 18 feet wide, but I can't tell for sure.
If I can get back to, okay, here we go. So this is the site plan that was submitted with the application. Yes, it does look like that is 18 feet.
Okay.
And I can maybe go back to previous pictures. Well, I did not want to do that. To the aerial. Yeah, and then it's a little short of the main house.
So probably like 18 by 35 or 40, something like that. You think, Carson?
Like 16.8.
16A.
Yes.
Accessory dwelling? Yes, just the, okay. You have good eyes. I guess, oh, you zoom your phone. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Thank you. I was like, goodness, because I couldn't see anything.
That's what I was.
That was a good idea.
So when we're looking at the square footage of this, the total square footage upstairs and downstairs, including the porch, is that just under 1,300 square feet?
Yes, sir.
So it's probably, as far as heated and cooled, it'd be 900 and something?
Yeah, probably about that, because you have the screened-in porch that's at the front.
Right, that takes about half of that downstairs.
Right.
Okay, are there any other questions? I guess looking at it, it seems to me they had a back house, but now if they get their own driveway, they just have two houses. You know, it doesn't, I mean, it's a not small accessory dwelling unit. It looks like it's a dwelling unit with its own drive and stuff, and that's kind of my concern, just starting out, but we can hear from the applicant on that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess for the staff or maybe the applicant. The utilities, electrical and all of that, are they shared with the main building, or are they seeking separate utility connections? Or do you know?
That is not, it's actually not something that was a part of the application, you know, how the utilities
Maybe
would
that
be.
might be a
I
good
mean, I
question
know
for the
that in
applicant.
some cases with an accessory dwelling unit, you could have separate connections.
I would say not. I would say if it's a separate connection, it becomes a separate dwelling, basically. Because it could be totally divorced from the original building. An accessory dwelling unit, as I would see it, would be one that's secondary to the main structure, and so there would be shared utilities. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but that's how I've always thought they would probably work.
I have a question. What's the percentage of square footage allowed for the accessory building with the main structure?
So the way it's written in our code is that it can be 700 square feet or a third of the principal structure, so whichever is smaller. And in this case, with the home being 1,991 square feet, would be permitted, I do have it in the staff report, it was like
663 is what I'm coming up with.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Right,
I know
yeah.
I do have that in the staff report.
And we're at somewhere around
1,200.
900 if you don't count that. It's covered, but it's not heated and cooled, so I would consider that not dwelling space, but outdoor space.
Mary, I can't
But
see.
they're asking to enclose it, which now we would have a 1,300-foot house in the back with a living room, two-bedroom house with a living room and kitchen.
I can't see all angles on here, but it looks like there's just a main wire going to the principal structure.
Okay.
Not to the back house, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, any other questions of staff before we, all right, if the applicant will come forward. Go ahead, give your name.
Smith, 3831 Lakehurst Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, 31228.
All right, good to see you again, Mr. Smith. If you'll give your name, I'm sorry. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay. This property, like Ms. Cobb said, it was built in 83, about 40 years ago. And when the owner purchased this property, he researched the assessor's office, and it appeared on the site that it was known by the agencies that it was adequate, so he purchased it with the intent that he would live in the front and his brother would live in the back. And that was his major intent. And to make it livable, that condition number 1 basically says, request that we move the living room, the family room, the half bath to the rear section of the house. The rear section of the house basically is about the size of, a little larger than the size of a parking space, a legal parking space. I think it's 17 by 9, or 17 by 7, 8 something. It'd be almost impossible to move family room, half bath, and the kitchen all in that space. So that's the only thing we are trying to get an understanding as far as that goes. And like I said, the owner purchased this property thinking it was going to be a livable space that was adequate because of the information he got on the assessor's office. And Mr. Long wants to speak. I will reserve the rest of my time for him.
Okay. All right, sir, if you give your name and address for the record.
Carl Long at 1301 Rolling Oaks Drive East.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so be God?
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Are we able to pull up those pictures on that disc that I gave you, that he gave you?
Are they, I have it up on the screen, but which pictures would you like to be shown?
The one that shows the accessories office.
Shelby County permit?
Yes. Okay, now when I was first shopping for a house, I was looking for an accessory structure. And I found this house, which is very close to where I currently live. And so I thought, my goodness, that's going to be a bonus. But I looked it up to make sure that it was permitted, to see if Shelby County had already said okay. And I looked that up under buildings, under 1492, and that's what I saw. Okay, I saw in 1983 that it was permitted twice, and for a 2-story detached utility building. So me being just a layperson, I looked at that and I said, well, Shelby County Code has approved this. So that's great. So, and then I made the offer and purchased the property. So I'm trying to make right on that, and I want to make it a livable space. And so I want to improve it. It looks fine from the outside, okay, but I want to fix the inside and make it livable. Now, I want to go to the conditions. The condition 1 on the staff report is, and I'm going to explain why it can't be done. Okay, can we pull up? I first had the Poe engineering firm come over, and they did a workup on that accessory property. And if we can open up the first Poe report, I think it says 1492.
Doesn't look like anything is loading for that.
Well, the Poe report, Gary Cortez came to the property, and in the front half, in the bottom floor, you have this open porch area. And it was, the rain comes in, and the bottom of the wood, the porch windows are like this. So there's not enough support for the upstairs. And he came in and said that because the rain had mildewed part of that, or had run down some of the lumber, that I had to replace the wall. So there are 2 walls on this side that I have to replace, and also in the front. Now, he said upstairs that in order to get 57 pounds per square foot, that I had to put plywood on the subfloor, which is fine. But I gotta have something that holds that up. Right now, with the current structure, cannot hold it. If you can just open up some of those pictures. I put this on a disc. Okay, that's the first Poe report. And if you can go down to what they recommend, they observed that, and if you can just go a little bit further to what they recommended,
The system is a little slow, so,
Okay. So he looked at everything, and he found what was not up to snuff, and he wrote out what I had to do. And what condition 1 is saying is that the screened-in portion of the first floor demolition plan shall remain as is. Well, I can't fix up the second floor without support from the first floor. And the lumber right now is not gonna support it. It has to be replaced. The walls have to be replaced. You gotta have 2x4s going every 12 inches or whatever it is, going up there to hold up the joists. And he also told me that I had to scab joists on all the current existing joists that go 17 feet and 3 inches. And so I've got to do that. So I've got to have something that holds that up. And so if you say that I can't finish that I have to not work on the bottom half of the front part of that, then I can't do the second floor because it won't have any support. And so I would like to make it a good thing for the neighborhood and make it livable, but without being able to fix that on the downstairs part, it won't work. And I want it to be structurally sound. And then I even had them come out a second time, and I clarified some things with them. And so I am asking permission to go forward with this.
So you're saying just the only way we can get the support for that bedroom is by building an enclosed room? You can't just put beams in? I mean, there's ways of shoring up a floor without building an enclosed space.
Can we pull up any of those pictures?
we have an hourglass right now. It looks like the system is hung up.
I mean, I understand that it needs to be shored up. I just know that you can put in beams and it doesn't have to be weatherproof.
No.
I don't think he's saying that they can't be shored up.
Okay.
Or it can't be reinforced without adding support to that sunroom. But what we're saying is that sunroom is about 70% of the lower floor area.
Right.
It doesn't leave much in that area. And I think the report said we should not demo the area. And I think he's misunderstanding that the demolition, he's understanding demolition means to not to demo it, but to leave it as it is. And, but we don't have a problem with anything but just the square footage at the first floor and trying to put everything in that back area, which is, that's the picture of the back area. And I don't think we can get the kitchen.
I see what you're saying.
And the family room in there.
Yeah, without, so the bulk of the downstairs is the porch.
Yes.
Not just what shows up as the family.
No, it's not a porch, it's more of a room that's screened in and offers no security at all.
Right, the way it's worded on here is that anybody can just come in from the screen and just ransack the place, the way that condition number 1 is worded. And if we could zoom in, or you can just see now that you need more support on the walls to hold this whole thing up. And I'm gonna be putting in some more joists there if I'm allowed to. So it's gonna be something that you have to hold up with new walls.
What's upstairs right now?
It's just 2 blank rooms. There's really nothing upstairs.
Are they finished, air conditioning or anything?
No, none of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was shown as a utility building. Basically, a 2-story shed is what was approved in 1983, not a dwelling place.
Yeah, so, yes, but I'm just it was great, I thought, that the Shelby County Code approved that structure. Me just being a regular person.
Sure.
You know, I thought, well, that's great, it's approved. And, you know, when you go through all the things you have to go through, then there are, you know, things you have to do. But when I bought it, I just thought that it was ready to go, just by looking that up on the assessor's office.
Right.
But you can see that there is a lot to do on that porch area, and there's no way you can fix the upstairs up without fixing that downstairs part.
Right.
I may clarify, I think that there was some confusion. The intention of the condition is not to not allow you to do anything, it's just not to enclose it. So you don't think you have to modify it, because it states, I think the last one out, Ms. Cobbs, if you don't mind, I just wanted to make sure that was clarified, I mean, he keeps saying that the wording of that he can't touch it, but he can definitely, in fact, renovate that space and upgrade it and add to it, but that condition would not allow you to enclose it as living space.
As written, though, if he wanted to enlarge it at all, we'd need to talk about that, right? Correct. It would need to be the small little enclosed space that's the utility room now.
Behind the stair that's shown on the plan. So,
gotcha, okay.
Where that kitchen is.
Okay.
So you build those walls to make it secure, is that what you're saying?
The walls would have to be, it would not be secure, because it'd still be like a screened porch. It would just have, it would be built better.
The water comes in, and it ruins the lumber, you know, and the screens are like, I'd rather have regular windows there that I can shut and keep the water from coming in when it rains.
Yeah, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Long, what is your long-term intent for this? Is this to be a rental property relative to you renting it out in the future?
My intention is for me to move into the front house and to have my brother move into the back house.
And my question to you is, the back house going to be a rental property regardless to whether it's family or not?
We're trying to make it a dwelling, so people will live there.
So the answer to that question is yes?
The answer to that question is, I think it would be a great idea for my brother to come in and live there, so he doesn't have to pay me any rent.
Is it your long-term intention to have it as a rental property if your brother is not there? Here's my point. I think one of the intents of the conditions of this is to fix it where it cannot become a rental property and you have 2 dwelling units on one lot in an RS6. So, with that being the case, without being able to renovate that as a front living room and without the kitchen, it is not really a rentable space. You follow what I'm saying? And I think the intent of that is to not make it a rentable space. And my question to you is your intent to make it a rentable space? I think that's the point we're driving at.
I think his intent is to make it a separate space for his brother, that he don't have to come and you don't have to use his home. That was his main intent. His brother needs help.
If I can interject one thing as well along the same line, and I say this a bunch, when we give a variance for something, we're giving a variance for what's up there. So sometimes even though somebody has the intent to let a family member do something, we've basically at that, we've let somebody build a house for anyone, because y'all both may be gone in 2 years, and now it's just 2 houses, you know, to the next person. So that's what we're always looking at, because we're only looking at the structure, not necessarily the use of who's going to use it as well, if that makes sense. And I'm having trouble with 1,300-foot structure in the back in this neighborhood.
Me too.
Especially with the downstairs living room and 2 upstairs, you know.
That's another house.
That's another house.
I can almost get behind, just thinking out loud, letting the kitchen get a little more space where you have room to have a kitchen and you have a living room and 1 room up, so it's just like a 1 room or 1 bedroom upstairs. But I don't know. It's too big to be completely enclosed. That's what it seems like. Other questions of the?
I'm along your line of something, of course, much smaller, and then, maybe storage, and then a living space, small living space up top. I don't want to redesign, but I'm definitely looking at it as two living dwelling places on one property, especially that size. The size of it is really what's taking me over.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I didn't live too far from here, my first house, and it was smaller than 1,300 square feet.
Right.
In the Sea Isle Park area. So,
But can I say, it's been there?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been there for 40 years.
As a shed.
Okay, it's been there a long time.
Yeah, it wasn't approved as is there plumbing in it?
No.
It was a shed. It wasn't a house. So this is something different than what it was for. Just because there was a structure there, I think it was different. But let's do this. Let's hear, I know we have some opposition here. Let's hear from them, and then you can come back up and you get to rebut and stuff, and you have a couple minutes left. And, that's just my feeling so far. Is Ms. Welch here? Hi, Ms. Welch, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
All right, if you'll give your name and address for the record for us.
My name, my name is Sandra Welch. We live at 1501 Wheaton Street.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
We have lived at Wheaton Street, which is on the other side of this house. We are neighbors with this house. When we moved there 9 years ago, this structure was, of course, there. We understand from the history of it that the lady who was living there at the time had renovated it because it was in such terrible disrepair that she had sided it and painted it and screened in with nice screens, the screened-in porch. It has never been used. And we have neighbors who are original neighbors in this 60-year-old neighborhood. It has never been used for anything but a storage unit. The neighbors with children and grandchildren would let their children play on a rainy day on the bottom floor. And what we are concerned two major reasons. One is that it is so large and it is jammed in between the existing house on the structure and our house. There is a 5-foot clearance, which I know is the minimum, but it's on all three sides. There's only 5 feet between the back door of the original house, which runs the length of it. There's only 5 feet between my fence and this structure, all the way back down my backyard and halfway up my bedroom windows. And then the idea to put another front porch on the existing structure, which is only 5 feet from our fence, puts a front door with a roof, adds 30 more feet to it, and then a driveway coming down from that to our street on Wheaton. Now, the house that is there, the very nice brick house, has an addition on it, which makes it a 4-bedroom house when the rest of the houses in the neighborhood are 3-bedroom. It is a 4-bedroom house. They added a bedroom, a bath, a hallway, and it's got a door to the front. So that house actually has 2 front doors, one on the driveway, one with a big front porch. And then this plan adds another 1,296 square foot house on the back with its own driveway onto a different street with a different front porch and a different entrance facing the street. It just increases, it doubles who can live there and how many cars in and out. It also, the picture does not show it well, but it is an eyesore. It's been an eyesore since it's been there. And trees have grown over it, in front of it. Bushes, plants have been made. It looks to cover it up so people don't know it. But all that will have to come down in order to pave the entire backyard, or half the backyard, to put this parking pads and driveway out to the street. We think it's more like subdividing the lot than it is an accessory dwelling. All the houses that receive this notice are all brick one-story homes. This is wood. I have pictures of it because it was entirely covered up by the street, but I have pictures of it, and it bothers me that Mr. Long says it looks fine as it is. He just wants to improve the inside. The outside looks awful. And to pull down all its tree cover and everything so that that's what you see from the street jammed between two houses is just not what fits in with our neighborhood or the historical. It's the prettiest little neighborhood with all its trees, and it's old, and this is just not fitting in with the integrity or the character of the neighborhood. The second concern is the in-out traffic. Adding another driveway between our house, which is actually the first one on Wheaton, adding another driveway between ours and the corner, and putting more cars and more people in our backyard. The screened-in porch is probably one of its better features, because you can tell that's what it is. We are very much in opposition to this.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Welch?
Yes. I do have some.
Oh, go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm sorry, what? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Welch. Is there anybody else here in opposition? Okay, if the applicant will come back up, you have
4 minutes.
4 minutes to rebut, or...
Well, at first I would say I love trees. I would never cut any tree down. And, I understand her concerns. We would have clerestory windows up there so no one can look straight out or whatever. And so I think the place sort of looks good. The landscaping would be even improved more. And heck, if we just wanted to put a single car driveway in, that's fine. But I understand her concerns.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. If y'all would, if somebody could give me a motion to approve BOA 2022-141 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Second.
Jackson and Scurlock. Any comments? Any discussion?
Too much house. I think the dwelling itself, even at 900, taking away the porch and all of that, it's just giving me the persona of two dwelling places on one property. And even if brother or the intent of brother, he moves on, something happens, we now have approved two dwelling places on their property.
Yeah, I think given how just it's situated on this lot, we've had some larger ADUs out in the county on 5 acres, not close to somebody. I mean, this is a whole house just right up on that other lot. I just can't, I don't think I can vote for it. Yes, ma'am.
I can't vote for this. It's out of character with the neighborhood. I'm not sure whether the staff said if a permit had been issued for this two-story building in the backyard originally.
It was.
It was issued.
In 83, but as a utility building.
Yeah. All the neighbors are opposed to it. I just think Mr. Long would have to do a lot more work and come back in with a different presentation and not the whole neighborhood against him and all of that for me to vote for it. Because the way it is now, I just feel like it doesn't really add anything to the neighborhood. He could sell it tomorrow once he got it approved, and someone else could use it however they saw fit as two rental buildings. And I can't vote for this. That's bottom line with me.
I think if you had this, in my opinion, if you had the same building that was there, that same footprint, but it was, when I think accessory dwelling thing, I'm thinking there's a kitchen upstairs, there's a bedroom upstairs, or a large live-in bedroom. That's an accessory dwelling unit. It's 700 square feet, which is what's allowed. This is just a whole house built the way it is.
I agree. Yes, I agree with that too.
So you have a kitchen and a bedroom that has like some seating in it. That's, got one, maybe two people could live there. This one, you could have 4 or more possibly living in it if you did it with the full thing. So yeah, I'm having trouble with that. Other comments? All right, with that, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Rags, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Gerlach?
No.
Mr. Melasry?
No.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Claybrook?
No.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Mr. Savage Towns?
No, I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are not being met, and the property will be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rare?
No.
Motion fails.
All right. We're sorry. Good luck. You might can come back with something. Mr. Ragzo, you call our next case.
Item number 19, BOA 22-145, 38 Angeles Street.
All right, the applicant is the applicant present on this one here? I think so. Well, a lot of things happening on Angeles. Okay. All right, Mr. Skinner, if you can give us a staff report on this one and.
Yeah, I can be super brief.
Sure, thank you.
So Lucas Skinner again, Division of Planning and Development. So this is the lot to the south, 38 Angeles. This request is very similar, though it does not involve a rear yard setback encroachment. This is just for the lot width and size and then street-facing garage. Essentially, very similar. It's a semi-attached plan, so it's not two detached single-family dwellings. This is a semi-attached two-family dwelling. We're recommending rejection again, so I'll just leave it open for questions if you have any.
Anybody have any questions of staff before we move to the applicant? Yes, ma'am.
Just so that I'm clear, this is one lot only, right? We're not dividing.
So they, as proposed, would still like 225. It's just that the structure is, instead of being separate, combined, but they still would like a lot line down the middle. So they could, sell them as two individual.
So not really more like a townhome as opposed to a duplex.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
If the applicant would like to say anything, go ahead. Or let me swear you in first. So you'll give your name and address for the record, sorry.
L.D. Humphreys, 5024 Wilburn Avenue.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So I do have Peter Warren, our architect here. We've spent some time evaluating the existing lot conditions and also evaluating some of the, what we felt was a need for the community, which is offering density. And also, we did have some conversations about context as well, and this is why we're proposing one single structure versus two individual structures to occupy that lot, if you will. So here we want to create home ownership, and we also believe that the way that people are evolving and the way that they experience and occupy spaces, I think this project embodies that, and so we wanted to, of course, design a project that was to that front. I know the two things that he's refuting or talking about here is the lot width as well as the front-loaded garages. But like I said, with us having one structure on the lot, we felt this was the best dynamic and best layout for the existing site conditions. And also, go ahead.
Could I speak to the design? I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead and give your name and address for the record. We'll swear you in.
Peter Warren, with the Office of Basic Architecture at business address 202 South Cooper, Memphis 38104.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. So we've been working with LD here, and there are obviously similar and adjacent parcels on the property. I would like to make use of the overhead projector a little bit once again, since we got it working. All right. I'm gonna set the phone over there. Hopefully, we don't get any embarrassing text messages. Okay. So I'll speak, as to the context of our project as compared to the past project. So there was, as recently as a couple months ago, a single-family house on this parcel, and as you know, lines are invisible. There can be telegraphed with a fence or something like that, but we don't have that. We have a single building going back in the place of a single building.
It's locked.
It's not an iPhone. I don't know.
Oh, is it?
It's wrong.
Is it too bright?
Yeah. Turn it up.
Down. What I'm trying to, there you go. And if you can even joystick look left and right. So I think what makes, I heard this stretch of Angeles discussed earlier, and it was like, oh, this is a great up and coming neighborhood. And yes, macro level, that's entirely true. But this stretch of Angeles is very challenging. I don't think most people here would want to live on it. And it's dominated by, currently, that is, it's dominated by Home Depot and Cash Saver. And if you'll pan to the left or right, rather, and show the view directly across the street from 38 Angeles, that's it, right? It's an 8-foot wide sidewalk and 4 rows of parking in the side of a giant grocery store. And so I think what we're proposing is going to be good for the community. And I think what is subject to review here is the lot width. So technically this is called a semi-attached home, which is a duplex, right? But there's a property line at the party wall down the middle. So that's why it's semi-attached and not a two-family home. So there's a little bit of lingo there. And in RU3, the minimum lot width for a semi-attached home is 30 feet, and we are proposing it be 25 feet. And the minimum lot size is 3,000 square feet. And we are proposing that it's not going to be 99 by 25 or 2475. So let's call it 2,500. So we're missing the minimum lot size by 500 square feet. Those numbers are much tinier than the single family home being proposed to the north. That's a single family home, I think, has to be 6,000 square feet and a 40-foot lot width, I believe. So there are variances being requested there. And then lastly, in the staff report, there's mention of the garage doors, and that was discussed a little bit previously about how there are 2 out of 29, and that is true. I have a legal take on the contextual infill standard that I would love to give you a handout on if we want to take the conversation there. But essentially it boils down to this, that the contextual infill standard is applicable. As an architect, I always go back to applicability. And it is applicable when 2 out of 3 adjacent lots meet a certain criteria. and that is that they have a single-family house or a residence on them. A dwelling, actually, is the language. And so I have a handout, which since I prepared it, I might share it. But adjacent means left and right and across the street. We do have a house to the left that's existing. That's across the street. And we have an empty lot to the right. And I know it might be semantics, but the UDC was revised in 2014. That language is color-coded, and it was changed from an adjacent development to an adjacent dwelling. You can look up dwelling in the definitions of the UDC, and it says a dwelling is a structure. So if you're at all inclined to hear our case, but you're bothered by the legality of it, I did way too much research on that for you. So that's all I have.
Did y'all have anything else to talk about? We do have opposition. Do y'all want to, are there any questions really for them right now? All right.
I guess I have one last thing to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is a modern, you'll see in the rendering, the elevation, this is a modern structure. And the contextual infill standard, and I sit on the Memphis Landmarks Commission, I'll be here in 24 hours, hopefully not as long as this meeting's lasting, but the contextual infill standards are focused on the siting of a house, the setbacks, its relative location on the lot, and a very short list of architectural elements like a garage door and a porch. They don't talk about roof, slope, massing, or architectural styles. So I'm just throwing that out there because not everybody likes modern buildings. Staff even mentioned in their staff report that they don't object to the modernity, I guess, of the proposal, but rather a few other specifics. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warren. All right, Ms. Webb, would you like to come speak again?
Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah. And I'll remind you, you're already sworn in.
Yes, sir.
So just making sure you remember.
Again, this structure does not fit the other houses in the neighborhood. As before, the other houses in the neighborhood do have porches. As a matter of fact, wraparound porches. This is totally different. I think it's a straight roof. All of ours have the traditional roofs. We're not opposed to the increase and beautifying of our community, but there's no yard in the front. There's nothing that matches what's going on currently in our community. For these reasons and the other reasons I stated earlier, I'm opposed.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ms. Webb?
Yes. I have a question, Ms. Webb. Would there ever be any chance that all the neighbors or most of the neighbors on Angelus might get together and have a meeting and talk about the future? I mean, to me, that would help me a lot.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The lot that sits directly to my home at one time was a community garden, and we did meet from time to time there. Also, adjacent to the house or across the street, there is a historical monument park that from time to time we do meet. It's not just a parking lot, okay? Yes, that parking lot was the old Fred Montesi. As a matter of fact, it was a girls' home before that, and the Fred Montesi people bought it. The community is a part of what's going on at the current Cash Savers. There's lots of things that go on that they support our community. They provide food whenever we have activity, and the Cash Saver people are very involved. Also, the Home Depot people are very involved with what's going on in our community. They make sure that the grass is cut. They make sure that the trees are all cut. So we, the people on Angela Street, won't have a problem. Whenever we see theft or something going on, we're the first people to call the police and call the management over there.
Well, I guess what I was thinking about is getting together in one mind about what you would find acceptable there. You know,
Yes,
what would be
ma'am.
the elements that it would have to have.
Yes, ma'am.
This isn't it, but some of the others you liked a little better, and you know, that way it would be more thought of as a whole. I'm trying to
And I
find some
think
way to do that.
Because of the pandemic, we haven't had a meeting in the last couple of years. But, I mean, we're on the phone with each other, checking on neighbors and everything. Everybody is, they're not all elderly, okay? Some people, we have young people, we have lots of people in our community. All races, creeds, religions, we got it all, okay?
Any other questions for Ms. Webb? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here in opposition to this case? All right, if the applicant would like to rebut anything or?
No, I don't want to rebut. I do want to apologize and clarify. I think my words pass judgment on the livability of the block. I stand by the fact that acres of asphalt is not great for a neighborhood, but I don't mean to pass any judgment on the livability of the block or the community that's there. And I recognize very quickly that those words I chose weren't exactly the right words. But it's a challenging urban stretch. There is a historic cemetery, Betts or some kind, I forget the family's name. I was surprised to learn.
Betts family.
Yeah, thank you. That's a little bit, a little. Right. It's can be seen as a little green plat of grass from an aerial, and it's a distinct parcel. But anyway, that's my clarification. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warren. Are there any questions before we move to discussion on this?
I do want to say a few things.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Also, in the same, sense that my neighbors bought their lots is the same sense that I bought this lot as well. We looked at the existing context of the street that was immediately before us, and I made an executive decision to purchase the lot based off of that, with understanding the UDC code from a high level. Now I know it very intimately through what we've been through so far on this. But just to clarify, we are allowed to do duplexes by right in this particular zoning. We are allowed to build two-story in this particular zoning as well under RU3. We can build up to 45 feet in this particular zoning as well too. And we're choosing to keep our project height more contextual, and also we want to understand safety as well. And so that's why we're seeking a variance for the front-loaded garages as well.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
And also, we did have a verbal conversation with Emily Bishop and Karen over at midtownmemphis.org, and they were in support of this project when I initially showed them that when they were passing out flyers for their parking day event that I attended.
All right, thank you very much. All right, with that, I think that we need to get a motion to approve 20-22-145 as conditioned by staff.
Can we pull up the conditions by staff, please? I just want to be reminded what the conditions are.
Yeah. Right now, yeah. Basically, what that allows is changes to the site plan can be administratively reviewed, but would have to come back to us. But then number two is what y'all probably do not want, because y'all want to have it, that site plan you have, and it requires a 6-foot porch and raising the elevation.
Yeah, we've already assumed that the raising of the elevation, 6-foot porch, that's easily, we can easily make those changes architecturally. That's not an issue. And also, we would like to get our design as our building as designed approved. So that would include the front-facing garage as well.
But it doesn't have a porch right now.
It does have a porch. If we can, so it has a small.
Oh, a small
porch here. So it's about 6 foot deep. It's actually. Do you know what the?
It's if it's not 6 feet, it could be 6 feet. It's probably 5 feet, and there it is.
Yeah. So, what's the definition of a porch?
It might be 4 feet, but we could work on that, and that's true. So that's the question. What?
Yeah.
Is it? It's a recessed entry. Might have room for one chair, and we could make it bigger. But you can see, could make it a lot bigger, or unless we went to an Audi from an innie.
Yeah.
And actually, I guess if you take from the window that's the innie to the front, the last step that's an Audi, is that the porch? So it's a matter of, I guess, interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would like to get our project approved as designed. We do feel like it does work with the community, it works within the existing zoning. And not to mention in the backyard, there is a flat roofed apartment complex immediately to the rear of us. And again, there is the cash saver right in front of us as well too. So, what we're questioning is contextual infill applicable here with our adjoining parcels, one being a lot, one being a cash saver, and one directly behind us being an apartment complex.
How wide, overall width of the building?
40 feet wide.
40 feet, okay. So you left the fives on the ends.
That's right. We have the original 50-foot parcel, the property line down the middle, which I alluded to, doesn't really register except maybe with the planter in the front yard, which we are, I don't know if proud of is the right word, but it is an architectural feature to have a planter down the middle. So it's 50-foot wide lot and 5-foot setbacks on each side, yielding the 40 feet.
I think this project also represents kind of the one thing with my company. It's a boutique real estate development and construction company. And the three things that we're passionate about is, we want to make good architecture accessible. Most of the time, good architecture is behind a wall. It's not affordable, right? Peter.
Taking jabs at me.
Yeah, I am. And so one thing that we want to do is make good architecture accessible. And I think this project is a representation of that as well. And also the second thing is we do like to develop consciously. I think I missed you, but I do like to walk the street on any community that I'm building in and at least meet the neighbors. So I know the neighbor next door to us I know him well. Again, we met with Emily and Karen. And so we want to develop consciously. Not only does that include price point, but that also includes community buy-in and understanding who are our neighbors in our community. And third thing, as a builder, I would like to build better, period. And that means building houses that are more efficient, that will last longer. So when we took on this project and designed this project, we took those three things into consideration from day one. And I think this is, again, going back into the evolution of how people are living in spaces now and existing in spaces now. People want walkability. People want we need less these days, and we want less maintenance and things like that too. So this project is very reflective of that.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we can get a motion to approve BOA 2022-145 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Second.
Claybrook on that. Discussion.
My first discussion, because this is the third one on the same street, neighboring. Development at this point is not just you, it's three others in the neighborhood, and I think it would be best for the neighborhood, for the people who are coming in trying to get adjustments to meet and get more of an overall consensus, just a game plan with the community. We've seen three different elevations, and they all three look different and are different from what's currently there. That's just my thoughts.
Jackson.
Well put. If you want to talk about context of a neighborhood, and I'm talking to my board members now, but everyone's hearing me, take all three elevations that we've seen today and take the existing neighborhood and tell me, can you run a common thread through that to get contextual, architectural context that is somewhat congruent and uniformed and yet different in style? Definitely different in style, but that continuity is not there. And I think very clearly, Portia said it well, that if you all would get together, meet with the neighborhood, and come back, would definitely be better than what we've seen today. Not saying that your projects aren't good, because they are, but you have four competing styles now. and you want to talk about architectural context, it's just not there. So, ditto, I mean, there it is, period.
Yeah, I agree. I do like the way you connected the structures. I think that's really neat to kind of have the same mass as the other structure. And I know duplexes are allowed. It looks like, we know it's not a duplex because you can sell them separately. I actually think that's really neat, but I just don't know if I can vote for the way it looks based on the contextual nature of it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think about this all the time with respect to neighborhoods like this, and we want more density so we can have a walkable city, so we can support transit. We obviously want new development, but we somehow have to balance that with respect for the neighborhood that's there right now, and respect for the character and the people who already live there, and so on. And I agree with everything that's been said. We're just not there right now with respect to this street, Angelus. I'm glad we're having the debate because it means somebody wants to go there. I think that's great. Don't go away. We need you. But everybody's got to work together to come up with something that everybody can live with and that will work for all the goals that we have. So that's how I feel about it.
Can I comment?
No, actually you can't. Okay. Unless, I mean, we could, well, because of the rules. Do we have 5 that want to go back to the applicant at this time? We don't. Okay, so, sorry. That's just the rules of how the meeting worked. What I would suggest, so I think you're getting a no. So I'm going to actually ask somebody to move for a hold, and you can come back with something different, or after talking, or come back with the same thing and say, this is it. Take it or leave it, but or just not come back. I mean, not that I don't want you to come back, but I think that preserves your right to come back, as opposed to a no vote now would not do that without paying more fees. And, I don't want to charge you like your architect charges you. So I almost got a smile for that. So if somebody would like to make a hold.
I move we hold this case until the next meeting.
Okay. And then second. Okay, so Baker and Jackson. All those in favor of hold signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we're held to the next time. All right. Mr. Secretary, we call our next case.
BOA 22-147, 3337 Overton Crossing Street.
Okay, is the applicant present? Perfect, thank you. And then I have some opposition, so if the applicant opposition will come down towards the front. And Mr. Thomas, will you give us a staff report, please?
Yes, I can. Good afternoon, Seth Thomas, the Memphis and Shelby County Division of Planning and Development. Case before us is located at 3337 Overton Crossing. The owner and applicant is Cass Central America Incorporated. The representative is SR Consulting, and the request is a use variance from section 2.5.2 to allow for the expansion of a legal non-conforming pawn shop in the commercial mixed-use 1 district. Here's an aerial of the site, just one property south of the intersection of Overton Crossing and Fraser Boulevard. Here's the zoning map. Really, it's a kind of mixture of commercial along Overton Crossing and Fraser Boulevard with some residential properties surrounding it. Here's a land use map that sort of shows that graphically. Here's some site photos. This is a view of the subject property from Overton Crossing Street looking west. Here's another view of it and the sign that's there. And then this view, kind of where the garbage or the dumpster is the view of the proposed expansion area. This is the survey of the lot as it currently exists. There's a drainage easement that's just to the north of the parking lot and the gravel area. And then here is the site plan showing the additional 2,000 square feet that they are requesting be expanded. So this property is not consistent with the Memphis 3.0 plan. And, in conclusion, the applicant is seeking use variance from section 2.5.2 to allow for a legal expansion of for the expansion of a legal non-conforming pawn shop. Staff feels that the granting of this variance will cause substantial detriment to the public good, and staff also feels that there really is no hardship present with this. It's just wanting to expand something that exists in legal nonconformity. And the use of pawn shops, payday loan areas are zoned to be in industrial or high-intensity commercial districts for a reason. Staff feels that this low-intensity commercial zoning district is not really constitute for the expansion of the pawn shop, and so we're recommending rejection. However, if approved, we have three conditions. Really, the two are all refuse containers have to be screened from the adjacent properties in the right-of-way, and that the proposed addition will not receive a building permit until the closure of the Cash America store located at 2198 Fraser Boulevard. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Mr. Thomas, does the applicant own this parcel or do they lease it?
I believe the applicant owns both parcels, Cash America.
Okay. All right, that helps. Any other questions of Mr. Thomas or staff before we? Okay. Ms. Reeves, if you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Cindy Reeves, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite 200. They only own this parcel. They do not own the parcel that they're going to be closing.
Okay.
And if
let me swear you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
And if this is approved, we would like the other store to be closed prior to certificate of occupancy of the new store or the renovated store. I also have the district managers for the store and the region and the regional manager. So I have them to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to be very, very brief. Basically, it's making improvements similar to this that they've done recently. That's their new prototype. That's what they want to be, or to leave it like it is. If you can go to that next slide. So we can either leave it in this condition, which means that we can't touch it, and this is what everybody sees from now on, or we can make the improvements and make it a much better, more pleasing site for the neighborhood. In 2003, Cash America got a certificate of occupancy, and they purchased the land in 2018 for over $1.2 million. And this is a big investment for them and for this area. The site that they are going to close is over 1,100 feet from this store, and the closest store to this store would be 5.4 miles, which is an easy pawn. So with that said, I'm going to save the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. Reeves before we move on? I'll go ahead and tell you, in case you have a comment. The reason I asked about ownership is because part of me, we don't want to expand a use that's non-conforming, but we're getting rid of one to have another. If they own the other one, I figure I have a little more control that we can make some sort of condition where that other parcel is not used for a pawn shop. Because it's got to stay closed, I believe, for at least 365 days, or else they can just lease it to somebody else that opens another pawn shop, and then we're stuck with a bigger pawn shop and another one. But I don't know if we have that option here. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does make sense, and it may be that the opposition may own the other site, so maybe they could put that condition on their.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. All right, then we will move to the opposition. So I have a card here for Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Hey, if you'll say your name and address for the record for us.
Anthony Anderson, 3607 Cowden Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38111.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Good afternoon. I am one of the founders and the current CEO of the Memphis Business Academy Charter Schools, which includes the Memphis STEM Academy. I have been working in the Fraser community for over 25 years. In the early years, I ran after-school and summer school programs for children at Hawkins Mills Elementary School, which is in Fraser, and Georgian Hills Middle School, which is also in Fraser. Those ministries later turned into our work in the charter school arena. We found MBA in 2004 with a primary focus of focusing on the Fraser community. Since opening our school in the fall of 2005, we took a year to plan. We have invested over $25 million into the Fraser community. In 2009, we purchased and renovated the former Kmart on Overton Crossing, which is directly across from them. 3 years later, we added a 15,000 square foot annex building, which includes a gymnasium and classrooms. And then in 2017, we purchased the former Fraser Plaza Shopping Center and invested over $13 million in renovations. Purchase price and renovations cost a little bit over $16 million. Presently, we are in the process of developing another 16 acres on Overton Crossing, creating an athletic complex that includes a high school football/soccer field with a running track around it and multiple practice fields. The city of Memphis is actually partnering with us for this endeavor. The MBA campus across the street from the proposed expansion is the largest school campus in Fraser. Over 950 students matriculate on that campus. Just across the street from that particular campus is our other campus, which now we call it the Harmony Plaza. We have another 225 students who attend the Memphis STEM Academy. We have intentionally focused on the corridor that includes Overton Crossing and Fraser Boulevard, sparking a rise in economic development. It was because of this focus that we purchased the former Fraser Plaza on Fraser Boulevard to house the Memphis STEM Academy. We have always wanted to be a catalyst for the Fraser renovation. For over 25 years, I have worked to help students and their families understand the importance of good financial principles. Hence, we named our school the Memphis Business Academy. The core of our message has always centered around building personal wealth through good money management. The predatory practices of Cash America is the total opposite of that. Their message is antithetical to ours. Their business practices are predatory and not good for the average family that we serve. We are adamantly opposed to them building a mega pawn shop directly across from our main campus. We're asking this board to please vote with this recommendation to reject them. And I want to thank these two ladies who have come to join us today and have sat through these long meetings. They are warriors for Fraser. Miss Talise Turner and Miss Anard Brown, who fight for anything that's good for Fraser and against anything bad for Fraser. I am adamantly opposed to this expansion of a mega pawn shop. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, the property to the northeast, that shopping center, do y'all own that?
We own, yes, sir. We bought that shopping center in 2017. We took away a club that was the anchor to that shopping center.
Yeah.
And we renovated 60,000 square feet of it for a STEM academy. And the other parts we own We own that entire parking lot except for that gas station.
So do you own where that current Cash America there is?
Yes, sir, we own that property.
Okay.
And they know that we had a lease that was binding when we purchased it, so I could not move them out. We've honored that lease, but we do not respect those purchases. And there are enough payday loan shops in Fraser if they cannot develop after our lease ends at the shopping center.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
For the record of transparency, our firm was a sub-consultant to the architects that helped develop the MBA original project.
Oh, yes.
I want to make that clear to everybody. We are not involved in any ongoing work with them, but I felt it was important that I divulge to everyone the transparency of our previous work there. And I don't see a conflict of interest in us, in myself, ruling or listening at this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the opposition? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Is there anybody else that needs to speak in opposition? Okay, then would you like to just come on, ma'am. If you'll come up front and give your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Annoa Brown. I live at 4589 Sunnybrook in Fraser 3127.
Okay, hold on. Let me swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
I would just like to say that I've been a resident there almost 30-some years. And Reverend Anderson, as well as his whole entire, the school, they put back in the community. The community has thrived from them being there. We have not had nothing coming from cash from them, from these people. They don't put nothing back. When we go to the schools or when we got a new library, they didn't put nothing toward the new library. We got a new community center. They ain't put nothing toward that. The school and Reverend Anderson, they always support anything that's going on in the community. And that's all I'd like to say. It's time to step up.
Any questions for? None. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? If you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Talise Turner. I'm located at 2770 Mayhew Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, Fraser.
Okay. Let me swear you in real quick.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
I am a Fraser resident and I fight for the children and the community. When I heard that this was occurring, it brought flashbacks from the fight that we had with them trying to put a landfill next to a school. I feel like this action going up right next to a school is detrimental to our children and also to our community. Cash America, I didn't even know they existed unless I go by to the school and I said, what is this over here? But they were there. We can't do anything about it. They do not need to add any more of their predator business in Fraser. We have enough problems, and we're working hard, very hard, to try to help the children, try to help the community, and bring good businesses to the community. So please reject this. Please reject this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, I think that's all that was here in opposition. So we'll move back. And how much time do we have, Vice Chair?
Yes, 5 minutes and 4 seconds.
5 minutes and 4 seconds, so go ahead.
Just for the record, this is not going to be a mega pawn shop. It's a little over 5,000 square feet with the addition. Right now, it's a little over 3,000. The addition is 2,000 more. Cash America owns the property, and they want to be a part of the neighborhood. They were never asked they've never even had any conversations with the neighborhood or the school. and they've just never been asked to be a part of the community, and they would like to be a part of the community. Maybe this would give us an opportunity to actually sit down, meet with them, and just let each other know what everybody wants. I think we all want the same thing, and we want improvement in this area. And a hold to allow us to meet with the school would help us tremendously, just to see if there is anything that we can do to be a good neighbor and to be a part of the community. And I'm going to let Mike Little to speak just a couple of minutes, or to just give you a little bit of background. And give you name, address, and swear you in.
Mike Little, 29 Sepulpa Court, Ellijay, Georgia, 30540.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I just really wanted to give the room an understanding of who Cash America is as an organization. I've worked for this organization for the last 28 years, and our founder and our principles are based on getting rid of the Hollywood stigma that's attached to pawn shops and the way that they operate in this seedy environment. We pride ourselves on the relationship that we keep with the communities and interacting with law enforcement, both local, state, and federal agencies. They all give us rave remarks when they come in and do surprise audits, the way that we keep our records, the way that we interact with our customer base, the way that we do our reporting that we're required to. And we've spent millions of dollars to get rid of that stigma. And it's very easy for someone to accuse us of being a predatory lender until you've stood on that counter and you've had that mother coming in that is looking for $20 because it's the difference between a gap in their income for that week so that their child can go on a field trip. It's very easy to say that you're a predatory lender when you've got a business owner that's working very hard and is having trouble meeting payroll that week and comes in, and we've got the ability to be able to assist that individual in being able to meet that need. We're not targeting those individuals. And again, because it was brought up about the payday lenders, that's not who we are. We are a non-recourse lender. The individual has the option to come in and sell us a collateralized item, or they can make the decision that they come back in there and pick that back up. We're very empathetic to the community. I brought the DMs that represent the Memphis area with me here today. Both of them combined have about 35 years or more, close to 60 years in the Memphis community. We've got, Nicole, you've been with us for how long?
I've been with the company for 16 years.
For 16 years in the Memphis area. Like I said before, we have spent millions of dollars in making sure that our teams are well trained. They understand how to interact with the community. They understand how to treat folks with empathy. We provide well-lit, very clean, professional environments for our customer base to come in. The only thing that we're asking for as far as the expansion is concerned is not to build a so-called mega pawn shop. We'll actually be, when we close the other facility, even with the expansion, we will reduce our footprint by half. We just need that because both of those facilities are self-sustaining on their own, regardless of how close they are. We just need that in order to be able to serve that segment of the community that still is coming in and looking for our services.
Any questions?
I do have. What is the square footage of the one that would have to close?
I don't have the exact square footage. We just looked at an aerial map and just did some rough calculations off of that.
And about how big did you think it was?
Roughly, that building, just looking, it looks like it's 6,000 square feet or more.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions?
The other store that you're closing, do you intend to combine those services under this one location, or will that just go away?
Oh, no, we'll combine those services because otherwise we'd be turning those customers away. They would, their options, there's no way for us to just tell them that we can't take care of them anymore if they drive across the street. And that's why we're doing the expansion to make sure that we can continue to serve them so they don't have to be inconvenienced on taking their items elsewhere. That's the ultimate goal there. I mean, the reality of it is that that location is owned by the corporation, and I'll be honest with you, we're not particularly proud of the way that that location looks. We would love to continue to be a part of the community, which we will be, but we'd love to have a nice, new, very professional facility for our coworkers and our customers to be able to come in and shop in an environment, and it would match the revitalization efforts that are going on in the community. I mean, you can see what our renderings look like as far as the attention to detail that we put into our locations. They look more like banks than this traditional CD pawn shop.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments before we move or questions of the applicant? All right, thank y'all. If somebody could give us a motion to approve 22-147 as conditioned by staff.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to mention, I don't know, just to clarify, the applicant did ask for a 1-month hold, but.
Okay, yeah. I would
don't
be,
know if that was.
yeah, if you're asking for a 1-month hold, I'm okay with a 1-month hold. But we can discuss.
Why? Say one word.
No, we're already, well, yeah, we can't go back without opening things up.
This one, they,
Is there any discussion
We
on the
do
hold?
allow a 1-month hold by the applicant one time if they request that, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I will say something before we vote, if that's okay. Here's my problems with this case. One, I thought that maybe I could justify voting for it by the fact that I'm getting rid of one and control it. I already got control of that. We do that with billboards sometimes. We trade one thing for something else. I don't have to do that for this one. For whatever reason, pawn shops aren't allowed there. It's non-conforming, not allowed to expand without passing any judgment on Cash America. We're not saying, okay, Cash America, we're saying, okay, pawn shops. And that's my problem with it. But we can, all those in favor of unless somebody has of a hold, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, it's held for 30 days. Mr. Ragsdale, if you'll call, I think, our last thing on the docket today.
These judges better not be long.
Number 22, BOA 21-160, 531 South Yates Road.
All right.
I gotta get my daughter.
Hey, hold on. Could we move the discussion outside? If that's okay, we got one more we're trying to do.
All these attorneys.
Yeah, they don't ever listen. Nobody ever listens. When you start talking. You want me to? Yeah, you might need to. Okay, Mr. Rowling, if you'll bring us up to speed on this.
Yes, sir. Robert Rowling, Assistant County Attorney, Attorney for the Board. We are proposing today a settlement of the Young Israel Synagogue case. I don't know if you all were here for that, but you recall that's the synagogue on Yates Road, bought the residential lot behind it with a site plan, moved playground equipment and parking back there, upsetting the neighbors back on Melody Lane. The board affirmed the zoning administrator's site plan and they made some changes to it. And the synagogue appealed to court. At the same time, the neighbors had sued the synagogue to enforce their deed restrictions, especially the setbacks. So as the board preferred, the parties have come to an agreement. They have a site plan. I will let Mr. Kahane with the synagogue speak about that, and Mr. Field for the neighbors address that.
Okay, good to see you again, Mr. Kahane.
Good afternoon, good to see everybody. Do I need to be sworn in or anything, or am I okay?
You were acting as a representative capacity,
Okay,
so you
thank
were
you.
sworn by the Supreme Court of Tennessee.
I'm pleased to be back before the board. We've had some lengthy discussions and a lot of really meaningful discussions getting to the core to not only resolving this issue, but really developing what we hope will be a peaceful coexistence and hopefully one day real friendship between the members of the synagogue and the neighborhood. Mr. Fields from Birch Porter has been incredibly important in helping facilitate this process, and we have come to an agreement. That agreement has been reduced to writing. We have worked together to revise the site plan which has been presented, and assuming that the board is satisfied with the site plan and it is approved, we will expedite formulation of that site plan, and then that will likewise resolve the two pieces of litigation that are across in Chancery Court. Do you not have a copy of that?
I don't know that I've seen the site plan.
Never.
We have one we can hand out, and I can probably in 90 seconds or less brief the board on thank you.
Yeah, does it work?
There we go. Okay.
As
go ahead.
As the board may recall, I think there were three broad areas of concern. One had to do with the location of the westernmost fence on Melody Lane. One had to do with the height of some of the playground equipment, and one had to do with the trees that were being used as a barricade. We agreed to move the fence inwards. We also agreed to remove about 2/3 of the playground that is most westward and relocate them to the eastern part of the property. And essentially that would create a light sign, a sight line that would really go with the front of all the houses across the street. And then to put up trees of a certain type and a certain height all along the exterior to really create a live boundary. And so the objective there would be to help this playground area really conform and blend into the neighborhood as great as possible, and at the same time provide the children with ample space to play. And all of that is recorded here on the site plan.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
Okay.
I was just going to tell you.
I'm happy to answer any questions, and I don't know if Mr. Fields.
Do you have anything you want to add to that, Mr. Field?
I just want to also just reiterate, Porterfield, again, I'm here on behalf of many of the owners along Melody Lane, and I'm representing the Melody Lane owners in their private lawsuit against the synagogue. That both sides started off on, got crossways. I'm sure you all recall everything that occurred here. The litigation didn't improve matters across the street. Mr. Kahane and I have been working very diligently all summer and going back into the spring to bring the parties together. And I am, on behalf of the homeowners, am also very hopeful that the homeowners and the synagogue and members of the synagogue are going to be able to get along well going forward. And that's really the goal here, is to make the entity and the individuals good neighbors to benefit everybody. And Mr. Kahane, went to great lengths to cause his membership of the synagogue to bend on some matters that they, believed that they didn't have to. And the neighbors did the same thing. They believed they started off thinking they were 100% right, but then they saw the benefit of trying to come together with the members of the synagogue to try to solve the matter. And under this plan, the neighbors get some additional protections. The fence gets moved back further than the synagogue maybe wanted it to. They're putting in some additional screening, and they're limiting the use of the playground. But they still get to use the playground. They still get to use it in the manner in which that they want to benefit to their programming. And hopefully, assuming that this all goes according to plan, the parties will continue to be able to get along well in the future. So thank you so much for your time. This will also resolve the litigation. There's pending litigation. The board got sued. I guess there's a pending appeal. That'll go away, as well as the private lawsuit will go away as well.
So we're now off the hook.
You're going to be sued.
And we approve
If we approve it. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for either Mr. Field or Mr. Kahane? Okay, seeing none, thank you. And Mr. Rowland, we just need to vote to approve this site plan, correct?
Right. The board is a party in court in the appeal, and any board speaks through its minutes. And so that requires a vote. Like any substantive vote, we'll need 5 votes. That will show the chancellor that the board is also in agreement with the settlement, which I recommend. I believe Mr. Ragsdale, Mr. Penzas, who inherited this from Josh Whitehead, I believe they do as well. They can speak for themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So if we can get a motion to approve the site plan that was just shown to us and agreed to by the parties as part of BOA 21-160.
So moved.
So moved, I'll take move and second with Savage Towns and Skurlock. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, if you'll signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming down. Thanks for waiting on us, too. It was a long wait. Mr. Ragsdale, do we have any announcements or anything this week?
I don't have any announcements, but I did have one order of business that I wanted to take care of. On the consent agenda, there was actually one item that we wanted to do a friendly amendment to remove a condition. It was actually 4 items. The 4 lot variance request on Majestic, items 11, 12, 13, and 14. We had a condition number 2, that stated file for administrative approval with the Division of Planning and Development for a consolidation plat that states the Board of Adjustment action. After conversations with the applicant, that's really not necessary and required. That can be accomplished through deeds. And so they requested that be removed, and we agreed to that, but I did not mention that. So if there is no objection, we would.
Is there any objection from the board of removing that? Seeing none?
Nope.
So ordered.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Mr. Ragsdale, I'd like to ask you a question about meeting between staff and board and where we stand on that, please.
Yes, we were going to try to have it this month, but we're still working on some of the material and things, so I think we're shooting for November. Yeah, that's what we're, Owen is here, so he has a lot of the content, so that's.
So are we definitely having it in November, or are we shooting for November?
Shooting.
So that means we'll definitely have it before December, right?
Before the end of the year.
One other thing.
Yeah, Mr. Rowling.
I did not get a chance, I was out part of last week, did not get a chance to write you a letter about this, but the Friends for Life case from this summer, you remember the building on Poplar in Midtown, they have, the neighbors have appealed to court as well. So we have that case pending as well. It has just gotten underway.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned.